Who's an edgy boy? We're definitely going to need to adjust the levels here.
We are. Which is why we shouldn't have gone live yet, but I'm guessing we're live already.
We are live. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
I'm not seeing it yet, but
yeah.
there we go.
So
Not
like,
only are we live, we have 76 watching now.
yeah. Apparently,
Is
this
that a
is an
lot?
interesting. For the
No,
beginning, yeah,
it's-
it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think our peak last time was like 200.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's.
I mean,
oh,
we've
is
had
that Corinne?
no. That was super.
That was super, yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. That
Alright,
was a
I'm-
good stream. I like that.
Yeah.
Let's try to make this one also a good stream, ideally.
I mean,
So, just calling this out now for the chat, please let us know if our levels are mismatched, because you need to tell us, because we can't tell.
That is correct.
everything is perfectly dead even on OBS for me. So just there's that.
Peak
But-
or RMS?
Peak, I assume. But
Why would you use peak?
I don't know. I don't know what OBS
Well, that's what,
uses.
that's what most meters are using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least digital ones.
I'll just do a quick intro and then we'll get going. So, again, as I briefly just mentioned, hello everyone. Today we're gonna have basically a community stream. We have our guest Blaine, of course, who's regular. We also have a new guest today, listener. You may know him from our community Discord. He's one of the mods there, but he is also just a general headphone community guy. I think that's a fair description. You are in many different headphone communities, and
And a reviewer.
and I was getting there. So also, if you're looking for reviews of things, he is actually one of the writers up on the audio files up on headphones.com. So some of his reviews are already there. I think one was a particularly scathing review of that Austrian Audio X55, which is I quite enjoyed that one.
You mean the review, not the headphone, right?
Yes, the review.
Okay.
The characterization I thought was. I mean, this is the thing. I actually haven't even heard that one. So
Probably be
there's
live
that.
monitoring while I'm
Got
fucking
it.
with my webcam instead of waiting.
Yes, all these things should have been done ahead of time. Anyway, so what we're going to do for today's live stream is we're going to have an hour of topics and questions and discussions on those topics, and then we will have spicy hour. So for the folks in the
An
chat,
hour of pure shit posting.
yes. So for the folks in the chat, hold your spicy topics and general cursed opinions until the end or until the second half, and then we will dive in because we need it. we depend on it.
So true.
Yeah. All right. Let me just. I'll take a look here at the commentary on our audio levels. It's listener needs 15 dB boost below 200 hertz. That seems right. Increase MAD by 3 dB. I can do that on my end. All right. He's been increased by 3 dB.
Oh yeah, RE20 gang, rise up. So true.
Is that Yucotec?
RE20 gang.
Yeah.
I need
Right.
to get my hands on that one. All right. All right, guys. Final opportunity to influence the audio of the stream before we get
I know
going.
my ass. I'm gonna keep an eye on it.
Okay. You keep an eye on it. And just as usual, guys, this stream is made possible by the fine folks over at headphones.com. If you guys are looking for our articles, written material, and just a whole bunch of dope audio gear that you can potentially buy if you are interested in it, check out headphones.com. It's the best place to go do that. And also our community forum should be linked in the description below. That's where we post a lot of the measurements that actually don't go everywhere is the most public. They get posted on forum threads. So if you guys are looking for more of that stuff, that's there. And then also, of course, our Discord, that is linked in the description. So check all that stuff out. Okay, let's dive into the topics at hand, and we have a number of them. I also had some that I was thinking about last night, but I'd had a little bit too much vodka, and so it is not in my brain at the moment. So we'll just go with the ones that we have, and if it pops into my head again, we'll circle back.
Yeah.
The first one we have here is how do people join and integrate into audio communities? And I do think that there's something interesting here because there's always that question in the back of my mind. What is this space like for new people? You know, like what is it like imagine we didn't have any of the context that we have or the touch points or connections that we have, imagine we're just coming at it super cold, and we have a number of different on ramps that we can kind of, you know, start our audio journey down. That's sort of the way I think about this. And yeah, I guess the question would be, from listeners' perspective, what do you see that as being sort of like as the dominant one these days?
Contextually, for the folks who aren't familiar with all the community figures, that's because listener is actually still a youth, and Andrew and I are old and crusty. And
Well,
have been in this
specifically
way
me. I
too
think you're a
long.
little younger.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
Shane
but
and I are closer in age.
yeah, but listener actually interacts with new people in the hobby outside of just like being like, no, well, actually, Kirchhoff's voltage law means that what you just said is incorrect. So,
Right. So he's less of a dick.
yeah.
Okay.
To answer your question, I mean, it depends on where you're onboarded. So, like, yes, I am on the younger side, and I am definitely new to, I think, this part of the community, at least newer than both of you. I started out in 2020 on Discord, and my onboarding process was a little rough. I mean, I started in Headphone's headquarters, so you could kind of imagine. Those who know, but I think a lot of the people that are coming in now, most of the ones I see anyway, are just coming into a Discord server asking about a headphone they're curious about. And I think it really depends on what the community response ends up being to that person. And in a lot of the good communities, their question is met with more questions.
Hold on. What animal is that? Is that a cat or a dog? I can't see the face.
That is a cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. We need
You're smaller
more.
than I thought you were.
The internet needs more cats. So no, or that's a big cat.
So true.
It's a very big cat.
Is that a big cat? How large is that cat?
I would say she's pretty small, actually. She's an old girl. She's not, we can, I wish I had a banana for scale, but,
We could start using a cat for scale now.
I think she would object personally, but
Okay.
anyway,
Oh.
yeah, it depends on the community response and what kind of questions they ask, and how down they are to get into the weeds with every single person who comes in. That's something I've tried to be really good about, because I mean, when I joined Headphones headquarters, it was a kind of opaque community. There wasn't much immediate sense of feeling like I belonged there. So in every other server and every other interaction with a new person, I try to, show up, be a friendly face, and both answer their questions but educate where I can, while trying to toe the line of not being too technical at first.
Right.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I remember even not that long ago, this, I guess, path wasn't even something that people would consider. Right, it wasn't even available really to people. It was more like you would go. Maybe this is also just because I was the type of person to immediately try and go into the weeds. But
Sure.
it was like Headphone was the place to go to start, and then
Yeah.
you could go to, like, from there it was like you would go into various other different information silos, and you'd take on some of the whatever the opinions of the community there were, for better or worse, right?
Sure.
And now we have a lot more, and a lot more
Yeah.
that are almost like, I think it's both a good thing and a bad thing, because I mean, I've said this before, but one of my main sort of gripes with the audio space in general is that we become too siloed and fragmented with the
Yeah.
community stuff that we the different communities that we participate in, often to our detriment, taking on a lot of the baggage that comes from those, especially when they are a little bit more on the edgy side. They're trying to be a little bit more authoritative, and that is very it creates this unnecessary element of exclusivity, and it's almost like a gatekeeping aspect to it. It's not so great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think any of that is unfair.
Yeah.
I think, my partner will remember that when I first joined this community, I used to tell her how unwelcome I felt, and how mean everybody was. And
Yeah.
obviously, it's not the case for me anymore just because I have a lot of friends now, but it was rough there for a while.
Now you feel that way about headphones.com.
No, I love pretty much everyone I work with. It's really
Yeah.
nice. But yeah, I totally agree about the information silo aspect, and I think, as much as there are these like fragmented communities peppered throughout Discord, I think it's a very common group of people just like moving from one server to another. It's actually not that huge of a community, so
Yeah.
I feel like the baggage does travel along with the personalities, but I think there are good aspects to that too. I think a lot of the communication of certain things, like which I'm sure we'll get into deeper, but stuff like intangibles and the more
Yeah.
subjectively cleaned aspects of sound. When it's a bunch of disparate communities that don't really interact at all, don't share common language or anything like that, stuff like that can be really hard to parse. Um, but I feel like on Discord, it's just mostly hard to parse. So it's
Right.
it's a very small uptick, but it's worthwhile. I'm not sure I would trade that for the inaccessibility and as you said, exclusivity.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Part of me feels like so much of the so many of the disagreements that you see in various places could be solved by just having better language. But,
Yeah, absolutely. Or even just like seeing each other face to face. Like I feel like there's so much lost to text.
yeah, but then you have to
Um,
go to places and like.
well, no, you can like VC like we're doing now and see each
Oh
other's
yeah, okay, I
faces
suppose.
and
Yeah, yeah,
hear
yeah.
each
I
other's
was thinking of like
voices.
I
trade
mean, we
shows.
can't actually see Andrew's face. That's the weird thing.
I mean, I got him over here on my little secondary monitor,
Yeah,
but I know what he looks like.
I mean,
Um,
it's nothing special.
but yeah.
See, I was gonna say, maybe Blaine on the flip side is like thinking, well, we should just like the solution to the de-siloing problem or to the siloing problem is to just put all the people who are most likely to fight into a room, just like air all the grievances
Yeah.
at once.
I mean, it's good content.
I mean, that's.
Yeah.
I would love to. I mean, well, I wouldn't say everyone who's most likely to fight, right? Because there's sort of a subset of people who are only looking to fight, and those people are never going to be worth talking to.
Right.
Sure.
But there's a whole bunch of people who actually are intending to be like positive and informative and have a good discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But then you introduce them to someone who doesn't agree, and everything goes wrong.
Right.
And that's really where I think more dialogue would go well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I suppose a related question then would be, in your opinion, listener, what would be the solution to, or what is a first? Should we move forward with just continuing down, hurtling into the abyss of these sort of information silos where there's no real olive branch or middle ground, between the various different communities? I'm talking like, for example, SBAF versus Headfi, right? Like that's a common one, right? Or ASR, right? Or should we even bother to try to, so I guess that's the first question is like, should we even bother to try to kind of bridge those gaps? Because it seems like people are very much talking past each other. And then the second part to that would be, how do we, in your view, how do we do that?
Okay. Well, to answer the first question, yeah, I definitely think it's worthwhile to bridge those gaps. Mostly because I mean, I've seen examples of a community like that working. And
The
generally,
headphone community, huh?
yeah. Well, no, yeah. Like
Actually, we did pull from lots of different places. So
that's what I'm saying. Like it's not always perfect, but I would say it's one of the more varied spaces, and there's discussion of different things, and people can choose what discussion they want to take part in. I also think that this is something Blaine and I have talked about in DMs more than once, but I feel like there's a little bit of a hesitance for people to get enjoyment out of disagreement, and there's something there that I feel like is worth chasing in trying to mine other people's differences from your own. And I feel like, not every space I'm in is great for that, but the ones I like to be in most are.
I
Um,
I'd like to say
Healthy disagreement can go really well.
yeah.
yeah.
And it
So
makes really good content for podcasts.
I was also going to
Also
say though, even because I approach a lot of this stuff with the attitude of basically I don't know shit, right? Like I don't actually know anything. I didn't study this stuff. I don't have a background in this stuff. I have a background in related things, sure, right, but not specifically acoustic engineering, right?
Right.
And or even some of the stuff that Dr. Olive has been doing, and I may have strong opinions about something, but I feel like the best times for me in this in my sort of time in this industry has been when my previous assumptions had been overturned. You know what I mean? Like where it's like, oh, okay, no, I'm thinking about it wrong. Let me no longer be wrong.
Yeah. Learning is a hell of a drug, man.
It is a hell of a drug, yeah.
Like, I can't think of something more gratifying in this hobby except for the friendships than the learning I've done, for sure.
Yeah. So for friendships and learning.
I mean, look, man, it's you find what you want, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm here. Like,
See,
I love music, always have, but like, I came here wanted to make friends and learn stuff.
Was you're familiar with that? It's like it's supposed to be like a cartoon image of like somebody describing why he got into vinyl, and his reasoning is because of the inconvenience and the expense. I feel like we could say a similar thing about like, why did we get into audio? Well, it's for the edginess and the vitriol.
Oh man.
But it needn't be the case, and I don't think it is actually. In I think it's more just that those are often the loudest things, and
Right.
that's
Well, and
why.
every internet community is dysfunctional. In
Exactly.
its own
Yeah.
way.
Right.
Like, I came out of PC stuff originally into audio, so audio is still healthier than that, at least, which is horrifying to say. But
Yeah.
You mean you have lots of disagreements about RAM? I mean, doesn't it get like a little bit more outside of people's heads in that world?
No.
That's
Frankly,
surprising.
no. I mean, well, because it's the same thing. It's the same shit. Like, there's a whole bunch of objective measures you can make. There's a whole bunch of science you can quote.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole bunch of people who have as many opinions as they have assholes and want everyone to see both. And it's just like,
So one.
God in heaven. Yeah. And frankly, I'm not inclined to see either.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, it's... Although, of course, both of them do get a lot of views on the internet.
Jesus Christ.
But for everyone who's like, oh, here's a benchmark, there's someone else that's, oh, well, actually, I don't agree with their methodology, which is often fair.
Uh-huh.
Or, oh, well, that's great, but the driver support is bad. Or, oh, well, that's great, but I have another site that did a different benchmark with a different system configuration. I'm going to apples to oranges compare it and say, well, in that one, my preferred brand / card / thing that I'm advocating is better than yours.
Yeah.
Just to sorry to
No, go
touch
ahead.
on this before I forget. I feel like even if we do integrate these different disparate information silos into a coherent kind of community, I feel like what's kind of bound to happen, it already happens naturally, is that the people who buddy up and have similar ideas and similar language and stuff like that will like go off to their own communities and splinter out.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a certain extent to which it's not necessarily a problem because it's just people hanging out with who they want to hang out with, but it does kind of circle back into the common language problem.
Every stream should just be about Wittgenstein at this point.
Oh my god. We really need to get like someone who just really hates philosophy on here.
Yeah, just for Andrew.
Well, no, because both Andrew and I are more fond of philosophy than we should be, and so we're more inclined to be like, oh yeah, that's the private language argument.
It's okay. Like, I mean, if you think that's inaccessible, how about literally everything else that we've said on this live stream ever? I mean,
I would say that, All right, here's a picture of an idea that possibly audiophiles may be more aware of internet communities and audio stuff than they are of Wittgenstein.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, this gets a little bit into the okay. I'm not gonna say it. I was gonna say it depends on if you're a Minongian or not, but we don't need to get into that.
What?
It's a long. It's a whole. It's a long.
All right.
story.
Yeah, let's not.
Come on. I honestly like. I was talking to Corey, who's the guy who's in charge of this merry band of content people.
Shouts out to Corey for a second, please.
Absolutely lovely guy.
Yeah,
Really one of the
love
best parts of
him.
working here.
Truly. Also really funny.
Really funny.
Yeah.
But he was like, we should absolutely go just completely into the deep end on the live stream stuff because like this is for the real enthusiasts. So you know what? Let's hear it, Andrew. Let's go deep.
Acoustic Impedance Stream 2023 begins
No,
now.
not acoustic. Oh my god.
We can be the destination, right? I just don't know. I do share the sentiment with Blaine though that like that the destination doesn't have to be like the most annoying bits of philosophy.
Those are the only interesting bits.
I suppose.
Yeah, I could take it or leave it personally. I'm here for the audio.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so people are talking about. I think they're talking about nihilism, but they're spelling it nihilism.
Ew.
As in like the Nile.
The Nile River.
Well, no, one is spelled Nial, and the other one spelled it as like the river.
It's just a guy named Neil.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Neil.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We're nihilists. We believe in nothing.
Now, the Big Lebowski at least has some connection to audio, right? The Big Lebowski, one
Yes.
jump over to marijuana, one jump over to listening to music.
Yes.
Man, I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid. Also, sorry about whatever that is if you can hear it.
Nope.
Nope. Thankfully,
I was
no.
gonna say best John Turturro character ever.
Oh, dude, I just started watching something called Severance. It's a show with him,
Oh, yeah.
Adam Scott.
I've made a
He is
terrible mistake.
fantastic in that.
I yeah. It's good. I've seen it.
Okay, so back to communities.
Yes.
Thank you, Blaine.
Yes, but I was just realizing, like, we've now jumped 7 times, and it's entirely my fault.
Someone says the street where I live is named after Nietzsche. Does that mean it's named Friedrich?
I didn't like
He
that.
just lives on a street called the Gay Science.
Oh my god. It's called syphilis. All right.
Right. So, one thing that I think that's sort of interesting to me is that these days we have Discord, right, as like probably the default for someone who's new to audio. Like, I wouldn't say it's the soul. Like, there's obviously people who go on hi-fi guides. That's Douglas's fault.
I mean,
people who
Reddit.
go on Reddit.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
not
Reddit.
anymore. Not right now.
Rip.
Sure. Yeah.
Have to pay respects.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
sort of interesting to me how that changes quite a bit from how it used to be, right? Like
Mhm.
every new format of what people get into is getting a bit shorter in its memory than the previous one.
Mm.
Like you can still find, threads on Head5 from 2002, and there are still memes on Head5 from 2002 alive in our modern era. And there's still some people, obviously. But Reddit, like, a post is there on the front page, some people see it, and then it's gone the next
Yeah.
day.
And
Mhm.
Discord is even further blip
Yep.
of that. The consequences of being wrong are less.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like because Discord is a community of people that are generally kind of sticking around, people don't necessarily forget super easy what other people are doing or saying. Like I feel like there's a certain aspect of community that isn't present on places like Reddit,
Mhm.
because the communication isn't as fast, and people aren't consistently addressing what other people are saying.
You don't form those bonds of friendship quite as strongly.
Hey, I
Yes,
made friends on
but
Reddit who started the first Headphone Discord. God, that was a
Chocomo?
shit show.
Shout outs
No,
to Chocomo,
actually.
by the way.
Yeah, shout out to Chocomo.
Shouts out to Choco.
But
Come on.
no, that was way before I knew Choco. I think that was before he made his account.
Oh wow.
Oh,
No, there was a Discord that was briefly affiliated with our headphones, and at the time I was a mod, so I joined it to like make sure that they weren't causing shit, and they often were.
Right.
And then I
Got
ended up on Discord too much.
Right.
mm,
Right.
got it.
But but what I mean is like I knew people already. Like I knew Kyle, right? Like Ishka. I already knew him from the Reddit when
Yep.
we
My
got
baby.
on Discord. So it's I think that, you can sort of form connections with people through Reddit. It's just rarer because a lot of people
Yeah.
engage with Reddit just as a content aggregator rather than interacting
Right.
with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's about the content, not so much about the conversations. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we can move to one of the other topics here. What's related? Is the community less prone to hype these days or more prone? I suppose in comparison to, the past. Let's
olden
say
days.
like 5 years ago.
So I wasn't here, so I would say Blaine.
You grew up fast?
You should probably start that. Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, I made my Headfi account in 2011. I just wasn't like
Right.
super present.
Okay.
You know.
So you both did something I didn't do, and this was, I don't know if this means you're both more or less sensible than I am, because both of you left the audio community for a bit, but then both of you also came back.
No,
so I
but
don't
you know
what that
why?
says.
It's you join it in the research phase, right? When you're like, I spend a lot of time at my desk, I'd love to have a great headphone-y experience. How am I going to figure out what that is? Well, I'm probably not going to look at like what all the the gaming headsets that are being recommended to me by all these various different channels because I'm better than that.
So I'm
more
going to buy Audio
sophisticated than that.
Technica
So I'm
ATH M50X.
So I'm going to do my
They
research.
just made an M50X that has the AT2020 capsule. It's actually kind of sick.
Yeah, no.
I'm curious about
Dan
that.
was telling
For
me
the
about
mic?
that. It looks really cool.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it has.
What?
So the boom mic is an AT2020 capsule.
That's got to be good. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, not the
that's
headphone,
what
but the
I'm like-
mic.
Yeah, no, I wish they would do that with like an A990Z or something.
Oh.
Oh,
And
like
I
something
would- I
actually
would-
comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I would buy that instantly.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
But,
But
yeah,
yeah,
so
go ahead.
I was going to say the reason why I left, and I think why a lot of people do leave after their initial plunge, is they figure out what they did their research, they bought the thing, and now they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so,
I have an alternative theory.
okay. That's what it was for me,
theorized
by the way.
Well, all right. I have an alternative epidemiology of falling into audio. I've noticed that people who get very deeply into the audio community tend to be profoundly unhappy with at least one thing in their lives. So it's possible that you were just too happy to become a member of the audio community at that time.
I
but
think
later
that's
on you were
unlikely.
sad enough.
I think
was
it's
totally-
unlikely.
It was totally the opposite for me, actually. That was
good.
probably like the worst part of my life, like my like late adolescence. And getting back into it, like the last 3 years have been a rip roaring time. I've been loving it actually, and I'm like with my current partner, we live together. It's great. I have so many more friends than I've ever had in my life. So yeah, all smiles
fair
here,
enough.
man. Yeah.
So
Man, you really don't match our vibe then.
no, but it's great
Yeah,
because
sorry.
it shows like
Yeah,
a
it's contrast.
yeah, exactly. It's a fairly important trajectory that you've been on that I think would be great if was more common.
All
I
right,
would
so as
agree.
the only one who is in there continuously, my earnest take, I think that it is exactly as prone to hype as it ever was. Because I
Yeah.
remember the days, I remember 2013, I remember 2015, I remember 2017. There was always something that was like, this budget thing is the giant slayer. I mean, the most memey of all of them, well, there's a few, but one of the most memey was the SHP 9500. That meme lasted
Mhm.
forever. But
Yeah,
every,
I gave
3
a pair to my
days.
dad.
What?
what was that?
I used to own one and I gave it away. I don't
Oh.
like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
But to your point, I think the thing that has changed, if anything, is not really being less or more prone to hype. It's just the voices who are doing the hyping.
There are a lot more voices who are talking about weird meme stuff, though. That's one big difference. It used to be, back in 2015, there were a lot fewer reviewers and they were a lot less responsive to memes, so memes just sort of percolated up from the community.
Yeah.
Now it's like memes get thrown into a giant amplifier sometimes when a reviewer covers them.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, I definitely still think the kind of community hype thing happens, but even then, I find it's somewhat at least centered on voices within the community bringing something to the attention of other people, and then they're like, "Oh, I trust this person. Maybe I should check it out. Oh, I actually like it," and then it just builds and builds and builds.
Shit.
Just one
Apparently, I
quick-
might have a ground loop.
Yeah, I heard that too. I was going to mention that.
I hear nothing on my end.
Well, your end is what they hear. So if
That's
you
what I'm
don't
saying.
hear
I
it-
don't hear it.
Yeah, I don't hear it anymore. I did
Maybe,
hear it
but maybe
before.
it's on my end.
Okay,
It
tell
was
me if
whenever
you
Blaine
hear
was
it.
talking and the noise gate was opening.
Hello, hello. I am currently talking. I'm trying to talk high so that I'm not masking the ground loop.
You're good.
I can't tell if he's saying Mad needs another 3 dB or if he's just trolling me.
No, he is saying I need another. Why would that be trolling?
Because you guys
If
are the
it-
same volume level.
If it's Keurig, trust him.
Okay.
Kirka.
The only thing is I
Fair,
noticed
yeah.
that Blaine was clipping a little bit earlier.
Well,
Ooh,
that's on
okay.
my side, though.
Yeah.
I can jack
Mm.
that down, and you can turn up your side.
Yep, I can.
Behold,
And now you are now 114%.
ground loop is there, but how would that work?
How is that even
Oh, yeah,
possible?
The ground impedance is going up and down.
That's really strange.
I should stop twiddling my ground register knob.
But yeah, I mean, do I need to like remove something? Like, unplug this?
All right, now I'm quiet.
Yeah, no, and I don't think it's on your end, Andrew. Like
Okay.
I'm pretty positive it was on Blaine's end.
You know, it must be on mine. If like I gotta trust the chat.
All right.
Wait, I'm clipping?
Yeah, but you're at least even
Oh.
now.
Well, no, hold on. I'm not clipping on my interface now. Let me do this.
It's when you get closer to the mic, it clips. When you're
Yeah.
further away, it doesn't.
I know that. See, this is why we need the AT 2020 headsets.
The AT20.
Yeah,
Okay.
constant proximity. Yeah.
Blaine needs to mute. Fair enough.
Jesus. All right. Back to the topic at hand. I trust Joel.
Mhm.
I trust Joel. All right. So okay. We were talking about the hype thing. Yeah, I do. I'm not sure if this is what Blaine was saying, but like I tend to also think that like the hype is a bit louder because there are more there are more people like Critical, right? Or to a certain extent, even someone like Dankpods, right? There's a lot more eyes on, and so maybe that's just by dint of it growing.
Sure.
That it feels sometimes like that hype is more consequential for things. And then you have situations like with the product Red, where the hype goes in one direction for so long, it's not exactly what people want, and then it goes in the other direction. It's amazing to see how it's an interesting sociology experiment that someone could do.
Yeah, it really is, man. Also, I feel like I'm sure you agree, so it's not a hot take or anything, but the negative backlash to that was just so wild to me.
It was.
Such a decent product, man.
Yeah.
Buy red.
Yeah, please buy Red. Yes.
It's good. I liked it.
Yeah. My only problem was the comfort, and I don't think that's going to be, a shocking thing to most people. I think many people might have that issue, but
I saw this recently. You could just buy some like Vaseline and stick it in your ear. And...
I'm good. Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, comfort is key, man. That's the reason why I'm not into etymatics. It's the reason why I can't wear those headphones you're wearing.
These?
Yeah, the clamp is just extreme.
Man, so I actually did what DMS told me to do, or told people to do, and increased the clamp even more. I actually like it more now.
Just lean into the discomfort.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's just because like when I move my head, it doesn't move at all. But yeah, there's just something about it being super snug.
Right.
I really like.
Right. Oh yes, Blaine.
So
I could talk for a long time on that.
Is this a philosophy thing? If it's a philosophy thing, I'm gonna go ahead and
It was.
say cease.
We're talking about Gettier
Yeah.
cases, so
No, just
Absolute-
nobody was talking about getting your
absolute
cases.
gibberish.
Someone has the username JTB.
oh, okay, but that's probably just
yeah, JTB's been in chat.
just a coincidence. I'm pretty
Before.
sure
I don't think that it's about getting your cases.
it's probably not.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
Okay, So on the flip side, the other one was, do we feel like that we have more controversies or scandals over time? And I actually do think it seems like we have more.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Well, it's just also in part. I actually think in part it's a good thing because there is
Really?
more. Well, I believe that some of that is feet being held to the fire because we now have a lot more people focusing on measurements. There's a lot more data out there on things, and I will be the first to say that a lot of the time that stuff is misrepresented, misinterpreted, misused. But at the same time, it is so much better than before, where it was just this nebulous cloud of like, trust this brand story, trust this technology story, trust this driver type story thing. And it still happens to this day. It's just that now we have actual data that we can hold up and be like, well, this is why, where that didn't exist before, or at least it wasn't as common before. So.
Yeah.
I think that that's fueled a lot more controversy, but I also think that we come out of it at the other end with a little bit, better or broader of a perspective,
Yeah.
Blaine
I think a
disagrees,
lot of
though.
I think a lot of the negative side of that is pretty much purely based on I mean, there are always going to be people with like, bad faith ulterior motives that like want to see things fail, which, there's plenty of that. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that we've seen recently has been people maybe not misinterpreting the measurements, but taking the measurements as gospel and just kind of running with before it even comes out. This is going to be one thing or another, and then just like the expectations run rampant and they're not met one way or another.
Yeah,
which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I thought I was going to like Red less than I ended up liking it.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because of the mid range.
You like more?
I like more of a low mid biased upper mid dipped.
Oh, so kind of like more like an SA6.
No, precisely the opposite.
Oh,
of
the
that.
opposite.
So,
You like less low, more upper.
No. So like
the
SA6
SA6
has that 1 to 2K bump. I want
Yeah.
the opposite of that.
Oh, I see
And
what
it
you're
has the
saying.
scoop
Okay,
in the
okay.
low mids,
I get what
where
you're
want
saying.
that
Okay.
product,
I got you.
Yeah, so like the Meteor, something like that.
Meteor. I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Love that.
Meteor is even a little bit more relaxed than Red. I mean, this is the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Red, I do find, even though it is the far less shouty, and we're off track again, but it's the far less shouty IEM, it is still a little bit shouty for me, just a little bit.
Yep.
4K.
No,
We're
I
off
agree.
track on our audio podcast talking about headphones.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
But
Blaine,
that,
you
that,
see,
that was the thing on the graph that made me a little bit worried at first. But
you ended up liking it, yeah.
yeah, I did.
Blaine, you seemed surprised when I said that I felt that it was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, well, all right, maybe it's just in general, like, what we mostly remember and what we think of as being scandals or controversies, but some of them I find really just emblematic of the silliness of this community. I'm thinking particularly of the Knowledge Zenith scandal with the drivers.
Which one?
Well, that's a very good question. Okay, I'm thinking of all the times people have been mad at Knowledge Zenith for using non-functioning drivers in their IEMs.
Oh, this is like the Kryn like BA timbre thing where there was no actual
Yes.
BAs. But then Kryn even said, "Yeah, I hear it too."
Yep.
So,
But I mean, there was a really big backlash to that, and really, from my point of view, I don't think it was reasonable. Like, I think that if you get a headphone, it sounds the way it sounded to the reviewer. It sounds the way, measures the way that it measures on the coupler. It sounds exactly as you'd have experienced it. And you're like, one of the elements in here isn't doing what I thought it did.
also,
This
how much
company
was
is
that?
a scam.
How much was the product?
35.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and let's be clear, it was not a good product. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying go out and, I've never seen a KZ product I would recommend people buy.
The
But-
the Kryn?
The Kern.
The Kern,
Maybe.
yeah.
Is it
Yeah,
good?
I mean, it had a pretty punishing 7K peak that actually was not shown on the 711 graphs. It was actually masked by the resonance peak at 8K that Kryn standardizes for. But we saw it on 5128 when he released,
Yeah.
or I guess he didn't release that squig yet.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a big 7K peak though. It's like 10 dB. But
So-
I liked it okay. You know, it was fine.
So Anime Golem says you can lie about the elements in the product and it's fine as if it's good as a weird take. Not gonna lie, but the thing is, they weren't lying. It had all of the parts they advertised. It's just people made assumptions that
Yeah.
they weren't just aesthetic. But even
Yeah.
if they had crossed them over in, they probably would have done it in a way that was, well, I mean, they were in the crossover, right?
Yeah, no, they were
just
active.
boosting
It's just they
output.
were
They
very
weren't doing anything. They were
Yeah.
there purely for placebo purposes.
yeah.
Well,
If
and to give
anything,
you BA timbre.
Well, that's true.
but actually, to maybe push back on your claim there a little bit of there being a massive pushback, I think there was a lot of lip service to the pushback when it happened, but it took no time at all for people to start buying KZ again.
Yeah.
So,
Most of it I remember is that there was actually backlash against poor Kryn for no reason on that one.
oh yeah, okay, that yeah, absolutely.
But
was
people they
unfair and
want
definitely
something
happened.
to hate. You know, people want something
Yeah.
to get out the pitchforks and go after.
Yeah, they're trying to come after my boy.
Exactly.
So Surov says, but reviewers cue on the presence of those drivers and post reviews mentioning gritty BA timbre and such. So essentially, they're as guilty as regular buyers. I mean,
mean-
guilty? If people are honest to their impressions, I don't think
Yeah.
that.
So here's the thing though. Even Kryn said that he heard BA timbre, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
I mean,
so I actually haven't heard it. I can't. I have no idea. But
it's gritty up top in the way that you would like normally associate with maybe a bad sounding BA set.
oh wait, have I heard it? Am I thinking of? There's two. One is the CRA CCA or CC something, and the other
Yeah.
one is Kern. Maybe I have heard it.
Yeah, the CRA is like super bright, whereas the CRN is actually kind of dark for the most part. But then there's just
Okay.
that one huge piercing peak.
Yeah.
Um,
So here's an interesting thing about. I think it's an interesting kind of like vehicle to examine because you have a situation where reviewers, or even in this case, Critical himself, say, "Oh yeah, I do hear a bit of BA timbre in this thing that is marketed as having BAs." Then we find out that the BAs are unlikely to be responsible for that. Does that make this
Except
person?
as perhaps placebo.
What? Pardon me.
Except perhaps as placebo.
Yeah, sure, but like they're not like so they are insofar as they might be likely for responsible for that. It would only be in whatever they may have brought their assumptions may have been at the time. But that doesn't mean that IEM doesn't sound like another IEM that has quote unquote BA timbre, depending on how that person defines that characteristic, because there's nothing that says that two things can't be going on at the same time, right? Or that when something is referred to as having BA timbre, for example, it could be elevated harmonic distortion of a particular kind. It could be, in the case of BAs, you see often elevated third and elevated fifth. You could then, in theory, have elevated third and elevated fifth in a IEM that doesn't have any BAs at all. And then
If that was the source.
if that's the case,
like if that's what was behind
if that's what was going on. Now, I don't actually know if that's what's going on in this case, but you get the point that you can have something be responsible for it that gets attributed to its unique driver type when it really should be attributed to something else, right? That thing that's actually responsible for it, and you can then find that in other driver types.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
about
I think
FR?
It could be an FR thing. It could absolutely be an FR thing. Sorry to interrupt, Blaine.
No, I was cutting in myself. No, but I mean, I think that a lot of the backlash there was in part because people don't like the idea of, oh, these drivers are literally just in here for aesthetics.
Yes, but
I mean, it's not lying to put in drivers for aesthetics. I mean, a lot of high-end IEMs have doubled or quadded up drivers that don't need the max SPL, and that's only aesthetic functionally in that case.
I was at a I can't remember which audio show this was at. Maybe it was like Pacific Audio show. And I was in one of the rooms where they had these speaker setups where they had this. It was like they had a tweeter, they had a mid-range, they had a subwoofer, and then they had a super tweeter. And I was like, okay. And they're like talking about all, the super tweeter is made out of whatever, and they're telling this big story about the driver. And I was like, oh, okay, so like, what are the different ranges, for the drivers? And then they're telling me that the super tweeter is 20 to 40K. And I was like, what the hell? Why?
Oh yeah, well I mean, so and this is something in general. If a speaker person says super tweeter, they usually mean something that's beyond the
Yeah,
audible
yeah,
range.
yeah.
Mm.
And oh god, the saga of that one is so funny across history. I just love, like, people are like, "Oh man, all of our audio equipment doesn't have very good transient response because, if you have a tweeter, you probably are rolling off around or before 20K because there are real trade-offs to tweeters."
Right.
So there's like, "But I want the impulse to be sharper. I want the step response to
Yeah.
be sharper. We'll just slap on a super tweeter."
So it'll designing for measurements.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean,
My
it's
fave.
And then you can tell a good story to subjectivists that they'll also be into.
there's no such thing as subjective. Well, all right, there are such things, but they're very rare.
The sound of defeat in your voice. Palpable.
You're rolling the boulder uphill on that one, even though I agree with you. I agree with you.
I'll
I
roll
completely
that
agree.
boulder uphill as long as we got it. I think that the body of people who are actually like, there is no actual material fact, just my perceptions, is a very small pool.
Yeah.
Also, the same
everyone
pool
else
that
is
is
a
the
subjectivist.
nihilists, or the solipsists.
Yeah, I mean, it is solipsism,
Yeah.
but I don't think there are really that many solipsists.
We
I think
uh,
most people believe there's something
oh yeah,
underpinning.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
They just disagree with what the orthodoxy is on that topic, or they don't know enough about it in most cases, which is fair. We have a couple minutes left before we get into spicy hour, but I think we can. There's a bunch of different topics for
Yeah,
us.
we
still
got some
here.
things left over.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we got some stuff.
So let's go. Your review process. This is for listener, and then also any upcoming headphones or products that you are particularly interested in. Things that
Sure.
may have been announced or you've heard recently, or yeah.
Yeah. Try to make it quick. Again, so like I started in 2011, and like my first, as I was in my, as Andrew called it, like the research phase of like trying to find stuff that I wanted to buy and use. Happened upon Tile, read a bunch of his reviews, watched a few, got a little bit hooked on that. So I feel like a lot of my process was informed by him, but because I've mostly been in it in earnest for the last 3 years, it was very heavily influenced by Kryn, you, as well as people like Kyle. So my process is basically I just listen. I'll just pull the thing out, start listening. I have reference tracks, obviously, available upon request, I guess. But it's varied. I have a pretty varied music taste, and I'll just start writing stuff down. My first review in earnest was actually of not this exact headphone, but the Aurorus Australis. And I was originally writing stuff down because I wanted to get better at listening. I had come from like a audio engineering background, but when I came into Headphones headquarters, I was just being told I was wrong all the time, which they were right about a lot of that stuff. So I was like, okay, I gotta build my listening skills. I gotta get better at this. So I was writing stuff down and making comparisons, and just trying to mine for truths that way. And I found that part has not changed at all. That's basically still how I approach a review, and eventually that just messy bit of notes becomes an outline, and the outline becomes a review that is nicely formatted. Yeah, I mean, I can't really say it's all that special. I feel like most of us probably do very similar things. I just have more time because I'm less busy than a lot of the bigger reviewers.
Do you, speaking a little bit of some of the language that gets used, like for example something like dynamics or macro, micro, contrast, all that stuff.
Spicy hour coming early?
Yeah, I guess. but like you see that stuff in those communities a lot too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Do you feel you understand what is meant, and that you're using it the same way, or you might be thinking of, say you hear something and you go, that might be what that is referring to?
Yes, mostly.
Okay.
So I feel like in that, for lack of a better term, like incestuous traveling community that just kind of like is in every server, I feel like, yeah, generally I have a pretty good handle on what they mean. That being,
Incestuous. Is that really the term we want?
probably not, but I said for lack of a better term, so I'm in the clear. Um,
Okay.
but I feel like I have a handle on what they mean when it comes to like specifically dynamics.
Hmm.
I feel like it's actually the other terms where I have a lot more trouble. Um,
Like what?
like detail, resolution, even stuff like soundstage and imaging. I feel like I have a
Yeah.
very specific take on those things
Yeah.
that is just like not shared by anyone, no matter who I talk to about it. And I feel like whenever I try to explain it, it gets like really into the weeds. So
See, you know what's funny is like I watched recently one of my like really old reviews just to get a sense of
which one?
it was one that I actually had on my previous channel because I was kind of going through like because I delisted all the videos in there, right? Because I put all the ones onto this is when I changed over, right? So
Right.
I was just going through that old channel and kind of like seeing what did I even still have there. This is where I got to some of those StarCraft clips that I sent you, Blaine.
Yes.
Because that's what that channel was originally. But anyways,
Mhm.
so it was on. I think it was a comparison between like the O'Toole and the Night Owl, like, and it was something to do with yeah. Anyways, it was something along those lines. It was actually a more of just like a topic, but I noticed that even back then I was describing resolution in terms of frequency response or trying to,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's not like that's if I say that now in certain circles, that's not going to make any sense to anybody, you know.
Yeah.
But because it's like, well, but that there's like a technicalities or like it's
Mhm.
it's the leading edge transients and the trailing ends of tones, all that stuff, right? So, you know, uh, where do you come down on basically like those descriptive qualities, technicalities versus it being just descriptions of the experience?
Well, to be very clear, I agree heavily with the what you just said of it being the description of the experience, not the
Mm-hmm.
transducer,
Mm-hmm.
not, it is something that is private.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the thing you're holding. It's about what happens in this whole system, including your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as where I come down on it, I'm probably way more on the FR explains all of these things side.
Mm-hmm.
um, I said in our chat that I had a take about dynamics being explainable through FR and being
Okay.
able to prove it, and I genuinely think it could be proven. Um, we can get to that later if you want, but generally, I definitely come down on the side of FR or technicalities being able to be explained in FR, even through our currently flawed lens of our measurement rigs just being one head, absent a brain. Um, that being said, I think it's more common than even us who want more people to be able to see through this lens actually think. I think in particular the IEM community is already accepting of at least one thing, which is that, treble extension equals technicalities. I think that's a pretty uncontroversial take in the IEM community where
Treble extension, but also shape.
oh sure. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, like I feel like those are things that are not weird to say in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
discussion about IEMs.
And
Um,
there's other ones that are becoming less weird to say, like the question of dynamics, with dynamic drivers versus BAs, where Critical showed that actually the subjectivists were right, quote unquote. When well, it was vindication for both sides, but the ones who were like, there's it sounds like there's more bass with a dynamic driver, even though it doesn't measure like it has more on 711, and then sure enough on
oh, are you
5128
talking
with
about the blessing thing?
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
see,
That was
but
cool, man.
now
That was cool.
what I'm wondering though is, I mean, I think you and I think about a lot of this stuff very similarly.
Mhm.
Because yeah, everything you just said, I agree with. But there is an element of like, I don't want to say when there's smoke, there's fire. In that case, where there was smoke, there was fire, right? With the
Right.
blessing 1 versus the blessing 3, I think, right? And we now have the answer, and it is explainable in objective, measurable metrics, like you can see the data on that. It's very obvious.
Mhm.
And again, I don't want to say where there's smoke, there's fire. It's certainly not in all cases, but at the very least, where there's smoke, we should probably see if there's fire.
Yeah,
and
we
I,
should probably check.
and yeah, and I think for some of these things, we're getting closer to being able to figure out, if there is, like for example, I tend to think that soundstage is something that can be analyzed in terms of FR, or like sense of space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And timbre as well. So, I do think it's just a matter of getting a better, having a kind of broader view of frequency response than just deviations and adherence to the target. But then also, it does help to, in my view at least, to have subjective reports to be able to figure out what the smoke is referring to, so that we can maybe
Yeah.
look and check.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't important, I don't think I'd be doing the whole reviewing thing, or rather, if I didn't think it was important.
Yeah.
Because it absolutely is. Especially because our common analysis of FR is pretty limited at current, at least as far as how that language is shared between people.
Yeah.
Part of what I want to work on is kind of, again, sorry for this. This is roaring right now, and I'm sure you guys are hearing it. Part of what I want to start doing is analyzing in terms of the changes it makes to individual instruments and sounds through EQ, and testing changes of a specific thing. So, like for example, when it comes to the impression of dynamics, a lot of the time the thing tokening that is going to be the kick drum or the snare drum, right? If there are certain FR features that lead to that impression consistently,
Yes.
on a kick drum or snare drum,
And
I mean, isn't that going to consistently show up in an impression, in a subjective impression of dynamics?
It should, and it should be something you can record, even, right, or even have in. Yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking
some recordings are EQ'd slammier than others.
When you we often make the mistake of conflating that quality with bass level, right?
Sure.
We know, you and I both know, like we're thinking of it not in terms of bass level, but I think a lot of people do. But I think if we start to think about it in the way that you just described, where if you think about, okay, that instrument or that thing that I hear, whether it's a kick drum or snare drum or whatever, sounds more impactful or punchy on this than it does on this. The sound, the tones that are being tokened aren't necessarily all going to be low frequency stuff. It could be, a much broader range.
I would say often it's above 500 hertz.
Oh yeah.
I would say you want to be looking at 1K, you want to be looking at 4K, you want to be looking at 8K, and that's part of the audio engineering stuff, and having at least a modicum of experience there, where I feel at least like I have some basis for those claims, but testing needs to be done,
and that's
something I want to do.
Now here's sort of a related question to that, and maybe Blaine can chime in on this too. What happens if we find out a situation where the desirable FR features, say we identify what they are for those qualities, are deviations from linearity?
I'm almost positive they are.
Right?
Well, so I mean, the question here you're asking is, are there FR features that can increase one preferred quality?
Which is why I was
versus
interested in
another.
the MDAX thing, but yeah, that's
Yeah, and that's something we know for a fact exists, and where we can pull that from is the body of lit on binaural recordings, right?
right.
So one of the interesting things that's been shown in a few papers, I remember one, I think it was by Fabian Brinkman, where they tested individualized HRTFs and multiplied individualized HRTFs. So they actually exaggerated the HRTF features for the directional audio, and they found that people actually localized more consistently that way. But of course, the tone of the sounds was worse.
Oh yeah.
So there are objectively cases where something can increase one desired parameter but worsen another.
Right.
Now, how that extends to impact, detail, whatever, I think that's more of a separate question. But it definitely, we know that it's possible, and it makes sense, right?
Yeah. And that also is very interesting because it really does open the door to so many additional, I mean, we're talking particularly in terms of dynamics right now, but it opens the door to so much else when it comes to good, because especially when you consider that people are looking for very different things. I like, this is where I think we need to do more research, as you were saying.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's an almost infinite amount that could be done in the minutia,
Yeah.
right? Because the majority of research has been concerned with the broad strokes and the big questions.
Hmm.
You know, like nobody's asking what makes this precise headphone slightly more preferred by 5% of people to this specific headphone. I mean, maybe a PhD student.
Yeah.
God, I don't envy
Yeah.
them. But even then, it would just be part of a giant thesis, right? Because you have to have some sort of bigger question that sort of work is answering,
Hmm.
or at least trying to answer. So, you know, what we get is, you know, this is the general preference that people have for headphones. This is generally what correlates with preference with
Yeah.
headphones.
Mhm.
This is generally what we find to be the threshold of audibility for people with average hearing, whatever. Um, the little minutia though, that one's a lot more. Well, I mean, I think that's something where probably industry asked to step in, and probably even then niche nerdy industry like us, because I don't think that folks like Harman are ever going to really
No.
care,
No.
No.
because that's not something that moves 10,000 units, right?
Well, it's a uniquely audiophile type of thing in the first place, right?
Mhm.
But you know, another potential avenue might be even something like gaming, right? If something is better at localizing, right, because of particular FR characteristics, or I mean, a more basic interpretation of that is even like what makes footsteps sound louder.
Yeah, I was,
When
I was just
Odyssey
gonna
did
bring
that.
up the Maxwell
Yeah,
footsteps preset and the Sennheiser GSX 1K thing, where like the gaming
Yeah,
or preset is just like lopping off all the bass.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. I mean, I think you're right. It's probably not something that like the mechanics of doing research like that are probably a bit difficult when you have such a niche audience, you know, for it. So I do
Well,
tend to agree that it's probably
I
an
think
industry thing.
implementationally, it's not a huge problem, right? But the problem is the interest pool there is
Yeah,
pretty small, right? Like it's the pool of people who are caring about the very small details. Like footsteps in games obviously is, you know, that's sort of like the most interesting thing, right? A lot of people buy headphones just for that. That's what the Maxwell does really well with that.
hmm
But for impact or detail, the pool of people who are buying headphones for that is like teeny tiny. So
you
to
just need to
to
put
recoup your dev costs, their research costs.
just
Yeah.
need to, instead of, you know, like how on like headphone boxes it's always marketed with like extra bass. Instead of extra bass, you're just gonna put, you know, has
Extra
slam.
soundstage.
Yeah.
Has slam big
Yeah.
chunk.
Well, yeah,
Slam
and that's
approved.
going to work great for like soundstage would probably be the first tier
Yeah.
in that, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Annoyingly, but
slam,
yes.
you're going to get maybe some Discord people, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a big market.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, actually, I kind of disagree. I think because people don't understand the term and the way that it's used,
I see what you
you know, I think actually the
Yeah.
market's quite a lot larger than that. But that is just a conflation with, you know, extra bass in the first place. So
Sure, yeah.
I feel like you have a very dim view of the consumer market.
yeah, I do.
All right, so here's the thing. In spite of that, the consumer market has actually been better than audiophiles at ferreting out the brands that make consistently shitty products.
I would
Yeah,
say
because
one
audiophiles
like
are the
Sorry, go
problem.
What?
Audiophile. I was gonna say because audiophiles are the problem.
That's fair.
We're always gonna be. I mean, I think it's like so the search for novelty is just so deeply ingrained, right? That it becomes people aren't looking for normal but good. They're looking for things that are gonna, you know, stand out, and this is gonna cause so much confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are we already in Spicy Hour?
We are in Spicy
functionally?
Hour. We are
Yeah.
in Spicy Hour. I just want to just follow up with listener products that you are particularly interested in, like anything on your
Ooh.
radar right now. We can get to that.
Ooh, yes. Definitely MM100 is probably evidenced by what I have on my head. I definitely want to hear how it is. I feel like it's going to be lighter, which I'm excited for. It's single entry, which is kind of weird, but the Maxwell headband seemed pretty good. And Odyssey, at least in the more recent history, has had a history of their cheaper stuff being tuned even better than the expensive stuff. Better in terms of
Tricky without
common target
DSP though.
adherence. Yeah, I mean they got it with this, mostly. You know,
It's
So,
close.
I don't know. It's, I mean, when I say common target adherence, I'm talking about like a
Yeah.
DF tilt. I'm not talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
like a passive Harmon shelf or
Gotcha,
something like
gotcha,
that. Like,
yeah.
but so I'm excited for that. Well, I'm that's what I'm looking out for next. I don't know if my expectations are high enough to be excited. Uh, the inevitable successor to the HD800S, which has been signaled to be coming for a little bit now.
It's the first I'm
Both
hearing.
from well, Sennheiser has a program called Sennheiser Explorers where it's like a consumer testing thing. They do like giveaways and you answer surveys and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And they have posted some pictures asking what looks best of an HD800, but with this weird rear damping thing right behind the driver. Um,
Okay.
they all no, they all look stupid.
But at least it's an
They're
indication that they're working on something. That's kind of cool.
they're working on something, yeah. So like
Yeah, but watch it be
if and when
worse.
oh it
HD6
is going to be
8XX.
worse. Let's be very clear, it's going to be worse. I have very little faith at this point, but you know, still holding out hope. I still love
Yeah.
Sennheiser
I
so
just
much.
want I want a redone HD 820 because I think it looks
Yeah.
cool.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, it does
I
look
mean,
cool.
it does
And it's
look
comfortable.
cool. It is super comfortable. It is super comfortable. I feel like it's an example of what the compromises of close backs are in general, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like so much of the problem there is having to deal with a rear volume. Like there's
Yeah.
just
Okay,
no
but here's the thing. Like,
what's up?
if the HD 820 was as competently, well, as decently tuned as the K371, it would have sold like 7 times as many
Yes.
units.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not saying I don't think they could do it. I'm just saying
I don't think they will
I
do
have
it.
my doubts about them making the open backs any better,
Mm.
Yeah.
which I think are well founded. If it's a closed back, I mean,
The bar's not that high for the 820.
it's not. That's true.
Sennheiser's not very good at closed backs on average.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, guys.
Um,
Should we
oh.
start spicy hour? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If you
No,
had more to say.
there's. I just wanted to put one more drop in the bucket for
Oh, sure. Yeah.
IEMs in general.
Okay. Don't
I'm
say you
very-
could check RE20.
No, RE2.
RE2, sorry.
Yeah. I think that was the confusion earlier. We were talking about our mics.
Yes,
when we were
yes,
saying
yes. Yeah,
RE20 game.
I saw it.
Yeah. But no, so like I feel like and this is maybe spoilers for my review of the Red, but that Red was kind of the conclusion of the old era of IEMs, right? Like it was Kryn doing way too much work on a $50 product to really refine it and be the best version of IEF 2020, right? I feel like where we're going now with the 5128 and people kind of getting hip to that, it's not going to be like super soon, but I feel like brands are really going to start catching on.
Are you talking about the D20?
DT200.
Wow, okay. God damn it. You know what
all right. I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
But I had to physically say the name out loud
Okay,
for
yeah.
all of my friends in Wild
Yeah,
West
yeah.
and AO.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm excited. And DT200 was from like 2019 or something, and it just happened to be really well tuned to today's standard. If the whole compensation target,
Someone
get
else
for
is saying
Kryn
this
is
too.
any good.
Cadenza 12 also was fairly close.
Man, I love that IEM.
Yeah.
Joseph's going to be sending me that eventually. Precog's review was pretty darn good. So y'all should read that. But yeah, I'm excited to get that in and get some more time with it because I really enjoyed that. And I was a little surprised, but not that surprised when you showed me the squigs and it was like,
Yep.
like
It's got a little 5.3K thing, but apart from that, it's pretty darn.
the hardness as
Yes.
we call it.
Exactly. I like the way you put that. It's great. All right, guys. Spicy hour has begun. Maybe be spicy 45 minutes here. What are we?
No endurance, 45 minutes. Come on.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Okay, so Joel says, optimizing for localization in stereo for gaming is a waste of time, and we need to be figuring out what characteristics are conducive to spatial audio.
I mean, I have a spicy response to that.
Okay.
Do it.
I feel like something that, I mean, I mentioned this in chat on one of the streams where like HG600 is DF, so it's like the best baseline for an HRTF model, like gaming or something like that. And I feel like one of the reasons outside of it just being DFE is that the treble peaks are not so crazy. This is I'm gonna start sounding crazy here. Sorry, y'all. But I feel like on a headphone with a lot of treble, there's not as much ability to parse between dynamic range between like a 10 to 13 dB peak versus like a 0 to 3 dB peak, right? Like I feel like
Oh, you mean like if it's too loud, it's too loud?
right. There's less opportunity for granularity there,
Okay.
right? So I feel like having something with controlled treble, whether it's to the DF standard or just smoothness or whatever, I feel like that could be behind imaging coherence and precision. I don't know if it's true. Obviously, I haven't tested it, but I feel like if we accept the common HRTF model and head tracking being good for actual localization in headphones, optimizing localization for gaming, you're not doing the head tracking most times, so it's just the HRTF model. How else can you optimize? I feel like it has to be somewhere in FR, right? And it can't be something that's tracking your head. So that's all I got.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a spicy take to me, although admittedly I'm so deep in that sauce that I don't know. But I'm trying to figure out what Joel was saying about localization not being important. Is like the concept that it's envelopment or like a sense of immersion that's more important than localization? Like, I feel like that spicy take needs a spicy follow-up that explains it better.
Okay, I think like there's on the one hand being better at like having a competitive advantage, for example, which is I think one of the reasons why a lot of people want headphones with good imaging, right? So there's that aspect to it, but then there's also like just what makes things sound more realistically 3D, like around you and whatever, right? And that may not actually be better for having a competitive advantage. It might be a better experience overall. So I don't know, man. Like when we did all this blind testing in games, and some games had Dolby Atmos, and some didn't. But we also found that like there was nothing consistent, almost nothing consistent when it came to the game engine, the way it was handling audio, when it came to the like how headphones performed, how good they were at localizing, various different things. And it just seemed like it felt like a bit of a crapshoot. So unless there's like unless some of that is standardized, I don't know how that question gets answered.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, like Joel might not be talking about the headphones. He might be talking about those.
Exactly,
Yeah, that's definitely a common take I've seen in the Discord spaces where it's like you're basically at the mercy of your game audio, right? So like even optimizing on the headphone side and getting something that you think might be better is like depends on what game you're playing, bud.
Yeah.
Spicy clarification: people need to be using something like Windows Sonic or Dolby Atmos for localization testing. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. No, the spicy follow-up kind of took out the spice.
Yeah, there's a shot of milk.
I see super spicy review, a spicy take.
Juicier is actually a good name for an IEM brand.
Yeah. Here's one from Hector. We're pretty sure Zach requested Atrium Caldera not be ranked. Oh, on Crinical's list. They are not new headphones anymore. We need old Crinical back. Reviewers are being monopolized.
What does it mean?
I don't actually know if that's true. I have no idea if
I'll sympathize with one part of that. He's a busy boy, but part of me does miss old Crinical, and by old Crinical, I mean the writing Crinical. I love so many reviewers in this space, but Kreen's written reviews were really something special, and I feel like him not doing that anymore is actually a really big net loss for the community. I deeply miss his written reviews, and I wish he would, do like once a year or something like that, like a little Christmas review or something.
The best Kreen video is the review of a review.
Review. Which
This is
one
his
is
first
that?
video that he ever did.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's so good.
I don't know, man. I
Yeah.
enjoy all of Prince content.
It's all good.
Like,
It's all good.
Oh,
But
me
really,
too.
we just
Yeah, no, of
like
course.
really we just need to get him some stimulants. Can someone mail some meth to Corinne?
or me,
For legal reasons, please
What?
do not mail any
just for
drugs to
fun.
That's
No, Corinne lives in Singapore. That is
that's true. That's
Oh,
true.
yeah,
not the
right,
place
right.
anyone wants to be talking about mailing drugs.
Yeah.
True.
Canada though,
Sure.
it's basically all
Nobody's
legal
gonna
here.
give you
Now it's
meth,
okay.
Andrew.
Shame.
No, it's probably for the best. Could you imagine? All right, see if
Hiram
there's another
says, "I can
Yeah, I
get
like-
much better." Oh, sorry.
No. I was gonna say, read that one. I like that one.
Yeah, I can get much better punch and slam out of a cheap Hi-Fi Man X4 or 4XX with EQ than the Focal Clear without using EQ using a BTR. All single-ended, and don't tell me I don't know what P and S is.
punch and slam.
Oh,
Mhm.
So all I will say to that is don't tell Ruck.
yeah. There are definitely people who would disagree with that, but I'm definitely like in general, EQ is
EQ is a dream.
yeah, it's heavily underrated.
Look,
Yep.
I don't know about y'all, but I've heard like Clear and LX and maybe not Utopia, just because like the tuning is more intense and like, yeah. but
Utopia is a punchy boy.
Yeah, but like I feel like Clear and LX, I've heard songs where it doesn't sound punchy. Like there have been plenty of times where like I put it next to like a 580 or even a 650, and the latter sounds punchier.
Yeah, see,
Um,
I would never. Although that makes a certain amount of sense if you consider what is it, 200 hertz?
Sure. I
Wh-
mean, they both
certain
have
extent,
kind
they
of
both
an
have that,
excess
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking more about the kind of 3 to 6K region. I feel like the Focals have that 4K dip
Mm,
that on kick drums can really kind of neuter the of a kick drum.
right.
And I feel like HD 600, 580, 650,
That's
they all
filled
have
in
like
there,
some
yeah.
some spiciness around like 5-6K, and then that area is just like normally kind of filled in.
Right.
So it depends on what you're listening to, man.
What do you think about Fostex for that quality? Like those, people.
I haven't heard many, man. I've heard modded TH900. I've heard the Teak, which is pretty punchy, and then Philphone, which is actually probably the punchiest out of all of them. But there's a tuning thing there. It's got a very forward 1K area. It's got
Yeah.
the pinna is
It's
shifted
not just
up
in the
towards-
bass. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's shifted up towards 4K. The pinna energy, treble on the lower impedance versions is a little spicy.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard the high impedance one though, that one's very smooth. Actually,
I will say-
it's so punchy.
We did do the slam off between the
Philphone
Philphone,
AG6.
yeah, and the AG6 one.
I'm
which
not
is
surprised.
linear in the bass, but this is again we were talking like it's
But also
something
a
else.
1K emphasis and a 4K emphasis.
Yes, but it's also got a dip at around 1 point. Now we're just talking about the AG6. Is that fun? Yeah, no, I think you're right though. It's definitely a relationship thing, right? What we like we
Mhm.
were talking about in the past.
Yep.
I've got a twofer of comments that
okay.
I think go well together.
Let's go.
Mike Mabike says HD600 is the greatest of all time. Headphones are solved. However, Easy Red says HD600 isn't balanced. Changed my mind. Which I'm assuming he means tonally balanced, not differential.
Okay, so I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I mean it has to be.
But the HG600 is a very good headphone. It's a very good headphone. It rolls off in the bass a bit.
Yeah, and actually, I have a problem with the treble on the HD6 series. They have some spiciness between 8 to 10, 11K that just aggravates me, and that's why I don't own one.
HBTF. They have
yeah.
those two positions that I keep finding, right? And I
Yeah,
hear
the
them
one with the
before,
6K
Yeah.
peak and the one without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, if I could find that 6K dip position on my head, I would own an HD600 right now. But I feel like that area always bothered me on
It's
them
always
too.
3, I think, for me, but 5.3.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a crispiness that
Yeah.
yeah. But, for most people who aren't me and notoriously trouble sensitive, it's a hell of a headphone, man. Like the mids still haven't been outdone, Like there's just
Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't. I'd say out of the headphone landscape, right? Those are certainly some of the better ones. HG600 in particular.
Oh, no question.
Certainly, like I can't think of anything. It would be my choice. Under 500 probably. Well, I mean, I'd probably go Edition XS and then EQ. Right? That's
yeah. No. So I was gonna say, I think for both of us, the factor there is EQ or not.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, even sans EQ. I mean, for me, I just can't do it because the ergonomics suck.
Of the 600.
Yeah, I'll die on that hill. It is not comfortable to me.
They're clampy.
Yeah, it's clampy. The pads are too small. My giant elephant ears get flattened. It's just not a good time.
Or Blaine.
Yep. Hey Blaine, I got a question for you. This is a spicy one.
Yeah.
Did you watch Chrono's video on normal people trying community favorite headphones?
I watched one of his normal people trying things, but I don't think I watched that one.
It was the most recent one he did.
All right, then yes, I have not watched that.
So the first headphone that was evaluated was the HD800S, and 2 people remarked that it sounded like farting car speakers, like with like car speakers that are bad. I want to get your take on that. None of them liked the HD800S.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a large sample, but
yeah,
because I think there's only
I
like 4.
I also don't think it's the most.
What did they like?
So they liked the Sundara the best. Well, they liked 2 of them loved the Aria.
Yeah.
They thought that was by far the best. Then 2 of them didn't like the Aria, or at least one of them really didn't like the Aria. But then all 4 of them liked the Sundara better than the HD800S.
Interesting.
I don't
I'm
think
not
that's
actually
necessarily
surprised.
a spicy take.
I'm
No,
not surprised that they like the Sundara over the HD100S. I would think that if you're going purely on FR, unless you have very particular like preferences, you probably would prefer something. I mean, which one has a higher PPR, right? The HD800S has a lower PPR than the Sundara. So it's not super surprising to me. That description is a little surprising to me because I usually tend to think like a DT770 for like a car with a bad subwoofer, or maybe like a Grado.
But
Like, I'm trying to imagine how they got to the bass is really loud.
No, not loud, like bad, like bad quality.
Yeah, like
sounding.
I think it probably had to do with the balance between like that, let's say 80 to like 300 hertz area and the dipped 1 to 2K, just like the lack of textural overtone emphasis. Whereas like the Sundara has that, and I don't know if the Aria has that, but the Aria has bass extension, so maybe that.
But it is an indicator as well of the how preferred the bass is a pretty key factor in overall preference for the headphone. And I think
bass is big.
Yeah. And the Sundara has that slight bass boost that goes up, at around goes up to like 50 hertz and then goes down. Like it's a more, I think more people are going to like that kind of bass than they are going to like the bloom of the farting HD800S.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair,
Actually,
no one's really complimented the bass to the 800. Go ahead, Blaine, sorry.
I like the HD800's bass with the caveat that its mid bass is meaningfully too high.
So do you EQ that?
I generally, if I can be bothered to EQ the HD800, I use 2 very low Q peak filters, one that reduces the mid bass and one that raises the upper mids.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'd also use a third one. I'd drop 6 point whatever K.
But that's because you're weak.
It's super shrill there.
That's because
you know it is.
It's not.
I can't handle my treble peaks.
I'm weaker than both of you. I just shelve everything above 5K down like 5 dB.
Yeah, 24 dB target.
Yeah. So the whole thing with the 24 dB target was I was using Kemar DF at the time for measuring IEMs, right? So like, for an equivalent sound between like Kemar DF and B&K 5128 DF on
That's
IEMs.
super interesting.
It was 24 dB for AirPods Pro 2. It wasn't a tilt of the B&K DF.
But that's also 711, meaning you're not getting whatever we found.
Like I'm not getting the canal interaction.
Yeah.
That's like weird. Yeah.
Well, no, not
but
that.
it's
But I'm just
still-
saying, like the overall tilt. Like this is the reason for Crin's new, the 2023 IEF. You know, being quite a bit more. You know, like the tilt is quite strong there.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you ended up with 24 dB.
That's a
just
very
the-
large slope.
Just to fit it to the AirPods Pro 2, yeah. Just as far as like the pin gain height and then I guess like where the low mids were.
Okay, so Rob Hawk says if you're playing a game where there is a snake coming, a voice should whisper "snake" because snakes can be silent. I agree with
That's a
that.
great.
It's such a good take.
That's an
Wow.
extremely good take.
Yeah.
Something all audiophiles can get behind.
Yeah. Especially if you're listening to like a 1990 Pro or something like that, it should be like snake.
Yep.
Ugh. Even wearing this is a little much.
Yeah.
that
Well,
SC
that's because this actually has a peak at around like I feel like it's around like 7-8K.
Yeah, it gives you more.
Oh, the RE20.
Yeah, RE20 does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reviewers should specify their skill in how to listen. Oh, I think you mean Harman's how to listen, right?
Yeah, the only problem with that is that how to listen is basically non-functional on modern OS. I'd really love to see that ported to
And Ben was
either a
working
web
on a web
format-
app.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Sorry, who is?
Ben Buchmus, the reviewer.
Yeah, Ben Buchmus.
Oh,
Ben
yeah,
Buchmus.
right. That's cool.
Yeah, he's making it into a web app. That's going to be exciting. If we need to disclose that, I'm level 13. So.
Just like frame it and put it on the thing, you know, behind next to
Oh
the.
my god, I would love that.
You should get Sean to sign it if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joel says the HD6XX is noticeably worse than comparables after EQ has been applied. And he elaborated on that to say, it doesn't sound as clear to me, even when they're EQ'd the same.
EQ'd using in-ear mics?
Well, you know the answer to that, and the answer is no. That's
distortion is one thing, right? Depending on what it was that he
distortion
EQ'd
is
it to.
quite low in the mid-range and treble.
So, but what was
range.
it that was EQ'd is the question, right?
If
it was the
Joel
bass-
doesn't love that much bass, but I'm sure he corrected it for extension. But I know he's not huge into bass.
He's a reasonable person, so we can be okay with knowing that there's not going to be overly high harmonic distortion in the bass.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like with that headphone in particular, I feel like there are so many other things like unit variation, padware variation.
Headphone to ear transfer function is huge on
Headphone
those,
to ear
and we're not
transfer
going to get
function.
the same
Yeah.
FR at the eardrum necessarily, even if they're both EQ'd to the same.
Yeah, positioning. I mean, it can go on. And not that I think Joel isn't taking those things into consideration as much as one reasonably could, but yeah, there's just too much confounding stuff there.
Yeah. Now, if it was the HD 800S and the Aria or something like that, those would be interesting. Although even those, that's tough because the Eggy Mans, they potentially leak at the bottom, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say the Eggy Mans in particular.
Yeah.
Problem there.
Yeah.
That is their formal name.
Yes.
So true.
Surov says, wouldn't handling blind ABX amp DAC unmeasurable be a lower hanging fruit than figuring out correlation of measurement and technicalities?
Oh, yes, but it's also a different fruit.
Do neutral amps really kill / increase dynamics? The answer there is a very easy no.
Yeah, I don't think that's that doesn't solve the question though. About
no. What he
headphones.
means is it would be an easier thing to test if, for example, Magni, Heresy, whatever, is audibly degrading dynamics than it would be to test what FR elements in headphones contribute to a sense of dynamics.
Right, so that's true, but I think that's already like I don't know if there's any new information that you get from that.
Both would have to be preceded by a study determining what dynamics is.
Well, not necessarily. So, I mean, obviously, de rigueur for this sort of stuff. For anything with, this amp that measures transparent is heard different, all you need to show is that people can't differentiate them, right?
Yeah, you can yeah,
if
you
they
can
can't
basically
differentiate them, then there's no difference.
you can
right?
create
Then
you can identify the negative result, and then that tells you something already. But I don't think that figuring out if determining that let's say neutral amps do have no effect on quote unquote dynamics. I don't think if you identify the negative result there that does anything about the differences that people report between Fostex and a Aeon.
Well,
Right?
yeah, but I think his point is that it would be basically this is a point where a lot of people claim that the source is a very large factor in dynamics. And it would be
Oh,
easier
okay,
to
right. I
address.
see what
So
you're
he's
saying.
basically saying, why aren't we debunking that instead of pontificating about something that would be much harder for us to test? Which is a fair question.
Yeah, it's not unfair. Yeah, that's
Do you have a cat hair on you, listener?
where.
On your chin?
On my chin? Oh, I probably do.
You do.
Oh my god, I do. This is just what it's like. This is my life.
You
Look at
live
my
with cat
head.
hair everywhere.
Yeah, I just have cat hair all over me. Oh god.
Oh.
Okay, so
Max settings
Surab
watches anime.
says-
What the hell?
no, Surab has a
Not
follow-up.
a spicy take. That is a cold
Surab-
take. He's the
Surab is
prince of
coming for
anime.
you. Surab says, at Resolve, you Resolve have in your reviews mentioned how different amps have different dynamic.
Have
We
I?
still get almost as many reviews of neutral amps on this channel as headphones. Have you?
I don't know if I've talked about dynamics specifically.
Maybe when it came to the A90, you had a little something to say.
Oh, you did
but-
say something about that with the A90, yeah. But then,
Yeah, but that was in
you
private
tried-
Oh, was that a
conversation.
review? I think that was
I don't think
probably
I've
in a
never actually
stream.
reviewed the A90.
Then you blind tested it and were like, well, I can't tell the difference.
So I blind tested it against the. So to be clear, I do not. I'm of the opinion that amps and DACs are not important. Like they're important only insofar as they can drive your headphones. If you have something that drives it, sufficiently, then you don't need to do anything else, basically. Specifically because of doing the ABX, right? It's to the point where I don't care. I kind of agree with Critical in that sense. However, I will say I have not ABX'd everything. I have not ABX'd an A90 against a frickin' I don't know what is the thing that people talk about, the precacity or whatever, right? The stuff that they bring to like can gems. I haven't done that.
Yeah.
So that's something that
could,
like
though.
What's that?
We could, though.
Oh, I don't have that equipment, but yeah, in theory we could. So I don't actually even think that we have anything that would be that would sufficiently count as like, yeah, I don't know. I think the closest thing we could do maybe is like the Zale, because we have the Zale.
For blind testing DAX.
No, amps. I don't know about
Oh,
DAX.
okay.
Okay,
Well, just because
Resolve
the Zale has the AB that you can.
Yeah, but the Zale it has the function so you can blind test DAX. I don't know if that's the intention behind it, but it is something you can do with it, which is pretty
isn't it
cool.
just an AB switch.
It's an AB switch for inputs, yeah.
Yeah, that's
which
not
is-
blind testing. That's just a quick test.
Yeah, just to switch between the two, yeah. Whereas we actually have have an ABX switcher that I used for doing blind ABX with the A90 versus the Magni 3, and then also the Vioelectric HPA V550. And across those three, again, there are they all have different power situations, right? So there would be 4 different things, but as far as the sound quality, when I was listening to the various headphones that I was listening to, I couldn't tell the difference. Or it was like, yeah, I got it right 60% of the time, but then I'd do it again and I'd get it right 40% of the time. So it's like there was nothing meaningful that I found, and so I thought, well, okay, even if it's something that like if this is one of those cases where, if there's smoke, there's fire, or there might be fire, we should look. It's never significant enough where I care. So I think why not make the pragmatic choice and just basically say,
Yeah. That's where I am right now, man. I feel like I've definitely heard differences between DACs, between amps, Obviously, I don't think I push that stuff on anyone else. But at current, I mean, I don't have any. I just use a dongle. Right now I'm using my audio interface, but
Hmm.
you know, it's just, do I want to put all that money into something that still isn't gonna make as predictable or meaningful a difference as EQ? No.
No, it's never gonna. No, it's not even close.
It's never gonna come close, no matter how much I
Yeah,
spend.
yeah.
So
So let it be known that, I mean, and here's the thing: like, I've definitely been wrong in the past about amps and DACs, and I really think it comes down to volume, because you're not in a controlled blind environment when you're doing that. So I'm perfectly happy to you know, admit to being wrong. I've been wrong before, and yeah, I'm sure I'll be wrong again. But the point
it's
is, you know,
important to admit, though.
oh yeah, for sure.
A
And
lot of people don't.
yeah, I mean, like there's, I've had, this is kind of the point I was making before. It's like, I don't come from a background of, you know, audio, anything. I come from a background of philosophy. So, you know, for me, a lot of this stuff has been, it's been a learning process, but also an experiential process. And the more you do things like these ABXs, the more the more is revealed to you, I suppose. And so, you know, I'm at the point where I basically leave the discussions of amps and DACs to other people, because it's not that I don't think there are, it's not that I think there are no differences, because the difference, like, there are times when you should expect there to be a difference. Like, for example, higher output impedances, tubes, distortion, like all those kinds of things. Like, there's also times when amps aren't perfectly linear. The point is that I think that where I'm at is that if there are audible differences, they are differences that we should probably expect based on what we can also find in data. There are other people, though, like, for example, Golden, who does have I think he's got a positive result on an ABX for something. I don't know enough about that. That may actually just be for DACs. I'm not sure.
So that's one of those areas where we're gonna need to do more follow-up, and I'm really hoping to work with Cameron on, and ideally soon, on trying to document where he is getting positive ABX results, and like troubleshoot a bit, because I mean, like, that's always where you go, right? If you get a positive result, you want to make sure, okay, well, it's not something else that isn't the actual variable you're looking for. I do want to say Surov has a comment here for his last spicy take on this. I feel like publishing these results, referring to your negative results, would help the community more to focus on the real things like headphones and transducers. And I do agree.
Yeah. The issue there, though, is that I only did this with 3 devices, so it's not a deliberate choice not to publish them. We just haven't completed it yet. I need to do more, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's something where I would like to do more of that stuff. I would like to have, because there's a lot of people who will tell people who have, you know, finite budgets, like all of us, but even limited budgets, you know, like the Muscinad one. God, I love that. I really wish we'd gone more into much deeper detail on Synad, though.
We can do we can do another video.
Oh, I have like an article series that I'm working on, which is like what we measure, what we should measure, stuff like that, like what we would want to measure. Anyway, but sorry, what I was saying was, like, people, you know, someone comes in with $300 and people tell him that he needs to spend, or her, rarely her, that they need to spend 150 of it on an amp or something, or 150 on a DAC amp combo or whatever, and it's just, they're not going to get as good of a result, right? Like that's why everyone is so into the Apple dongle, right? It's because it's cheap, it works, it gets out of the way, and you can focus on the stuff that seriously matters.
So I'm listening to an HE6 SEV2, and if the narrative is all you need is the Apple dongle, someone's going to have less than a great time.
Okay. You say that. You say no. Hold on. I have countermanding evidence. I have evidence. So Andrew, I sent you an analog filter. Well, I didn't send you, but you had an analog filter, which we know hard clipped at a peak level of 98 dB SPL, and we know that for a fact because you measured it, and you didn't hear that.
Which, the one I'm using right now?
No. Yeah, actually, the one that you're
Because
using with the...
I do have it plugged in right now,
Yeah, so
but I'm not listening that loud.
exactly. Which
Yeah, but other
means...
people are probably going to listen louder than I, on average, listen.
Okay, well, but for you, the HE6 would be fine on the dongle.
Yeah, probably. But I'm not.
So, in fact, it's not the proof.
But I wouldn't say that's. Hold on. I am not indicative of the widest population here, necessarily. We don't know that.
Listen, there's someone who needs that, right?
Yes.
But for you, it would be good.
Yeah, but I also EQ.
So unhappy.
I am unhappy. I wouldn't use the Apple dongle for this. I'm sorry. I would not.
I mean, with EQ, I feel like that
Yeah,
makes
of course I EQ. Plus, I mean, why do you think I'm using the filter?
Oh, is that what it's doing?
Yeah,
Yeah, we made a filter.
it's boosting the bass.
Passive negative
Yeah.
high shelf.
Well,
So
not
there's
just that,
there's
yes.
no scenario where you'd be able to run this with the filter off of an Apple dongle.
Well,
Which
okay.
is not the point that Blaine's making,
No,
but I'm just
hold on.
saying
Plug it in.
if
Plug it in. Let's see if it clips.
I don't actually have an Apple dongle around. Yeah.
Terrible.
No, I'm not contending that for everyone 95 or 98 dB SPL is a reasonable peak, right? Like, I mean, I nobody saw this on the stream, thankfully, but a listener blew my ears out because I had the volume cranked on my amp because I was testing the successor to that filter, and I had to crank L30 to max and high gain to get 110 dB SPL, which is a really high peak level. But
I'm sorry.
You know, yeah, it's okay. But what I mean is, like, there are definitely people who do need something more than the Apple dongle with the HE6. But if you have $300, you should probably be getting an Apple dongle. And if you shouldn't get an Apple dongle, it's because you have a very specific and unique need set.
Or I don't know, if you're EQing stuff, I think that's reasonable.
Okay, how much are you going to be EQing what, though? Because if you're EQing, like, a K375, you still are fine with the dongle.
375.
K371, you mean?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm posting this from the future.
Well, yeah, but that already has a bass boost. What if you're a listener and you want to go 24 dB target?
Okay. No.
And the
was with
headphone
an
you
IEM.
happen to have is
Never
an
gonna make
etymotic.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? So it's not always you have to go from Apple dongle to like a beefy stack, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's controversial to go from an Apple dongle to like
An
one of
Atom
those
stack.
dongles that actually does 2 volts or an Atom
I would,
stack.
yeah,
or
something that sits
Magnum
on your
stack or
desk
something
that's
like
cheap but does all the things. And
like y'all don't spend much time in the trenches, as it were, but like we have other dongles that you graduate from when you move up
if
from
you
the Apple
level
dongle.
up from your Apple dongle, you
There is a
something else.
gradation of dongles,
Okay.
yes.
A
So
dong
yeah,
gradient.
it's not, especially for people in Europe, the Apple dongle is not always going to be
Of course.
a perfect option. But
Oh, right, because
it's-
Apple's one of the few that actually complies with European output voltage requirements. All the
That
other
is
ones are
correct.
technically illegal.
Aha.
that's pretty tough, actually. I kind of like that. But dongles be aplenty in this
Okay.
hobby.
Let's get back to to some of the spice here. I see some more.
Damian Albrin says, I feel like if Synad had any real value, ASR ruined its value in a large part of the audiophile community.
Did it have any real value?
No, it did not.
Okay, now hold on. So, THD plus noise is Synad, right? They're just the same. It's just one is noise plus distortion over signal. The other is signal over noise plus distortion. So they're the same mathematically. It's just whether you're negative or positive. That's not true. There is a use for that. And the use is I can only measure a level and I need to say how much this device is fucking with my waveform. So if the only thing you have is a voltmeter, and there was a time when the only thing we had was voltmeters, you have to do THD plus noise. Because all you can do is remove your signal, which is because you just use a notch filter. So they did have, at one point, a very legitimate and fundamental, like it was the only option. It's just that it makes no sense in an era where we have Fourier transforms.
Well, and also the use of it, which is I think what the heart of this take is is getting to, which is people, the way that it was commonly being used, I suppose, before the debunking of it,
Well, as if it's changed.
as if it's changed, yeah. But the way that it has in the past been commonly used and probably still is people will end up going from one device that, you know, shows extremely, that ranks highly to another one that ranks a little bit higher because, you know, they think highlier, yeah, because they think it is better, when in reality they wouldn't hear a difference even if they had something that was, you know, way lower on the ranking. Or they could put themselves realistically in a situation where, you know, they would actually be hearing, say they're running a Campfire Andromeda, for example, or something like that that's highly sensitive. There are other IEMs that are highly sensitive like that too. And so, yeah, I think it's actually contributed to more confusion than less.
Well, I think it's contributed, ironically, to more snake oil than less, which is sort of funny.
Yeah.
Like, we went out of a space where people, like, it's kind of a funny thing where the so-called subjectivists are often the ones saying, oh, don't buy the expensive amp. Whereas the so-called objectivists are the ones saying, oh, this, you know, that only has 105 dB cyanide, even though it's distortion products that are going to be below the threshold of hearing with real music. And it's, or as you say, conversely, you know, something where you have noise that is masked by distortion, or just masked by the fact that our audio analyzers have noise that is above what is technically audible with the most sensitive IEMs.
Yeah.
And so you can technically end up with something that's supposed to be transparent, but you could hear a faint hiss with it. Now, I mean, the problem is it's not Cunningham's law. Whose law is it that once something gets turned into a scoring metric, it loses all value?
Why the hell would I know that?
Why would you not know that?
Why would you not know that?
Oh my god.
It's your job to know things, Blaine.
Yeah.
That is Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Unfortunately, it was also not a good measure to begin with. So,
yeah.
I mean, it was a good measure in 1930.
Yeah.
But it's not 1930 last I checked.
Yep. Okay, there's a spicy take after this. The headphone community in audio science will improve as a whole if we can find a way to do testing and studies online so that we can use a huge body of high-quality ears who normally can't. And this is just an opinion that someone has decided to put some peppers around so that we read it out.
Well, no. That's all right. So the if we could test online, that would improve audio science. But the premise that we have a huge body of high quality ears in the headphone community, that's the spicy take.
But
because really, I think that is a spicy take. Like audiophiles.
Hold on. I think you're right that it is a far more like there are so many. There's bound to be more confounding things if that's what you focus on. At the same time, I also think that's where the most interesting stuff is. Because if you're going to round up, you know, all the people who, you know, use this same language and do know what each other are talking about, I'd be very curious what you would be able to find if that's your pool. You know what I mean? And if that would be different from how it would be for just general preference. I imagine that there is a difference, but I'd be very curious what that is. You know?
I mean, when in past we've quantified how people listen, audiophiles really haven't done that great. Now, it hasn't been a huge population, but in general...
No,
okay, and to be fair, quantifying how to listen... God, we could do a whole fucking cast about that at some point, because I feel like people have real misconceptions about what makes a good listener. Well, except for this good list. Yes.
But I mean, it is something like if you go to. So I notice this when I go to trade shows, right? Like CanJams and stuff like that. I can't imagine what it'd be like for you. But when I go there, I mentioned this before, and I talk to people about a particular headphone or whatever, and they tell me, they give their description of what it sounded like, and it's so out of whack with how I hear it. It's like it just kind of blows my mind. I don't know if listener, if you've had that, experience at Catch-Ups, right? It's
Yes, I
it's
have
just
had
like
that
all
Are
over the
you
place,
kidding
right?
me?
So and
Yeah.
and most of the
Oh my
time
God.
when we are actually like, sitting down to listen to a pair of headphones or whatever, it's just our own. We're not encountering that. So it really is a bit of an eye opener that I suppose you have to ask yourself. It's like, are we hearing these things that differently, or are people just focusing on different things, or are we just super? Is everybody just like super in their own head
Incapable
about?
of
Yeah,
communicating.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then they're
I
super in
honestly
their
think
head, and that's all that they
Why
can really
not
do.
all?
Yeah, all of those things. All of those things. Yeah.
I was arguing in the chat with Eskimo Bob about this for a bit because did not accept that my assertion that there was a pretty wide variation in how people described headphones' relative detail.
Oh, your assertion was that?
Yeah.
Talk about low hanging fruit. I mean, I feel like that's just like tacit. That is
Yeah, I
very
mean, like,
Well, you
well,
can.
observable.
But okay, so you probably lean on the side of like, because there's no agreement on any of this stuff. It's a little bit of this mysterious, nebulous thing that is kind of fugazi,
I
right?
didn't say no agreement,
But so
but
this is where I would go. Is I would say they're if you get certain people in a room, you will find agreement. It's
Yeah,
just that
it may be that you
Yeah.
would find agreement, and that's something we still need to test because that's the thing.
Yeah.
If you get people to all listen to the same things, people who have previously agreed about a hierarchy of, say, detail between headphones, and then you have them rate the hierarchy of some new headphones without talking to each other, then you get a very interesting data point about how consistent those impressions are. And we don't have that yet.
yeah.
So
would like
it's
to.
true
Well-
that while we can talk to each other, we can
Mhm.
come to a consensus. But that's kind of trivial.
So I was going to mention that because like the other side of it is that so much of this is also a bit of a language game where you're really just trying to figure out how someone else is using a term so that you'll be able to understand, okay, yeah, this is what they mean when they say X, so I understand that. We can identify the same experience, let's say, whether that experience is similarly identified or enjoyed. I have no idea.
Sorry, the commentary, the chat's pretty good at the moment. We've got these headphones have great molarity, and it's fruitless to try to do this because we don't have a universal language for describing sound. Responded to with, it's only fruitless if you don't use fruity to describe sound.
Yeah.
I've heard
So
some pretty
true.
fruity headphones in my day.
With so many influencers and tech reviewers driving sales, I think there's been an increase in companies focusing on hype in mind rather than making the best products they can. For example, driver types. That's been a thing for like a long time.
Ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually do agree that I think that that's probably
like more now.
yeah. Well, because what it used to be, well, so old man economist is going to sit down and tell you about the old days now.
What are you doing?
Someone clip that, please, and then
No, please.
put it
never
on like
ever
the
clip
face of
someone's
that.
Deckard
recording
Cain,
this.
please.
Please, please do not clip that.
Yes,
Anyway,
stay a while and listen to Old Man Economist.
It's
so,
too late. My
no,
minions have grabbed it.
but in the day wherein the day was like 2005 or whatever, there were a lot of firms that had memes about driver types, right? Like that's pretty much been in speakers, that's been a thing since at least the 30s. But what it used to be was every company had some meme about what they thought was perfect or the right way to do it, right? Like, you know how in speaker companies you mostly see they figure out how to make one driver type, then that driver type is perfect, the best. Maybe it's an electrostatic panel speaker, maybe it's a ribbon driver, whatever. But that is the right way to have music. And for headphones, for a really long time, it was just the same, right? Like Stax did not make dynamic. Stax did not make planars because they thought that they were inherently bad. They were inherently worse than capacitive electrostatic headphones. Now, though, we've seen a shift, and it's a shift that happened like during the time that Odyssey was making planers, because when they started out, obviously their thing was planers are just right, and they still make planers, but like I've seen the shift from there is like a flavor of a certain driver, to that position, from only planar drivers have sufficiently good detail, or all dynamic drivers are more are just the canonical right way to reproduce music. Like, you'd probably still get that from like Grado. I would bet that if you talk to any of the Grado folks, they would still probably say that dynamic drivers are just better. And you probably still would if there are any people remaining in Stax who used to work at Stax.
Well, I mean, this is sort of a ubiquitous thing everywhere, though, not just in the headphone world. I remember this when I was working in tech. You had companies this was like the transition from spinny disks to solid state drives. You had companies, I can't remember the name of the company, but there was the company that made the hybrid drive. What was that called? Maybe it was Western Digital or Seagate, one of those. But anyways,
well, Seagate had them.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But anyways, companies were set up to make a certain type of product, and they told all these elaborate stories about why that product is the best way of doing X, Y, and Z. And
that's what's changed.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people are just like, every driver type is like a spice. This is like, this
it's
IEM
just
has a planar midwoofer, but it has DD sub bass and electrostatic tweeter.
Yeah.
And I blame IEMs entirely.
But at least with IEMs, you can find the measurable difference.
Yeah, but that isn't what people look for. Sorry, I should let Griffin talk. Someone says the listener looks like he's about to burst.
No, I mean, I think there's some merit to being accommodating of multiple driver types. And this is something you guys have talked about before on stream. I definitely have preferences for one over the other. Not that I am. Blaine, you didn't dox me. My byline is on the website. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
No, but as much as I might have a preference, I think it's fine that people have their preferred thing. But I think the brands doing it aren't necessarily thinking about it with that reasonable of a tint.
I will say.
I mean, it's like the controversy about KZ, right? Like, the people are mad because
it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, they have literally reduced the concept of different driver types to, we technically put them in there.
But I mean, it makes sense that there would be a preference for a given driver type, because when people have great experiences with audio gear, they are probably at some level attaching that to because it uses X driver or Y driver, or something to do with the driver, right? Never mind that you could probably achieve a similar kind of enjoyment for that person with a different driver type. And it's in part because that's attached to the stories that get told about, X, Y, and Z driver. The stealth magnets is the one that keeps coming up, right? These days. We've talked about this in the past as well. But the same is true with, beryllium driver and for dynamic drivers and all this kind of stuff.
Don't
and then you get
M-shaped drivers.
M-shaped driver. Well, but this is how you get those like the sort of canonical attachments that people have towards different driver types with certain types of experiences. Like, for example, the one that is still, even just this past week, we saw a lot about it, where it was like, all planars sound compressed, for example, or all dynamic drivers are, better. Sorry, I'm getting many pings. Were you guys talking about something?
No.
No.
Oh no. It's not as black.
What happened?
Oh, listener, you're roboting out a little bit. Sorry.
Oh.
You're back. You're back. You're back.
I'm back.
Getting many pings is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw lag and I wasn't sure if it was on my end or not, and then I saw a whole bunch of pings pop up, so I thought maybe something was going on. But
got it.
Couple more spicy takes and then we'll call it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can go as long as you want.
Yeah, I.
there were
You're
were
you're,
there
you're
some
the
we
one that
missed?
needs to go.
Yeah, I am. Hey man,
Yeah, but he's also the one who controls the channel.
that's right.
Terrible.
Saturday is a StarCraft day. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god. Is that why you're leaving?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
Oh,
I was going to
better
be
not be.
super offended.
No, I would not. I would
Yeah.
not do that. I have been considering like if I do decide to get back into it, to stream on Twitch my games. But as I shared with you, Blaine, the sometimes things get particularly vitriolic.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's StarCraft for you, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I think the only time my mother ever was like, "Man, I'm not sure I like you playing that video game," was when I was playing StarCraft because I was swearing to myself the whole time.
Yeah, there's a lot
You
of
know
that.
what? I thought to myself, like, you know what? My mother's right. And so I stopped playing StarCraft.
You know what though? I feel it's made me a better person because whenever you have those like moments of like where you feel like you're gonna like rage or at something because whatever you lost or something happened, it's a good way to just be able to like force yourself to just chill. It's a good exercise. Some people don't go through that exercise, but but also like I don't know, I am the chillest person in that game because it's just a game. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
But I can also understand. I mean, it's kind of like like Dota brings out the worst in people, right? It's that kind of thing, and I feel like you should want people to have a good time, even if they're the ones who you're playing against and they're beating you. You should want them to play more, and so you should be nice to them.
So true.
Anyways, that's off topic.
Yeah.
Also,
LCD4 is the
Chungus 100.
Chungus.
Nothing. Wait, who said
What was-
Mike says Blaine plus max settings equals metal?
I don't know
I'm
about that.
offended on all three of our sakes.
Oh no.
Wait, does Metal watch anime?
I didn't
don't
even know
watch
that Max
anime.
did. I honestly, I don't.
All right. Moving on.
LCD4 is best Odyssey product and only obtainable planar worth having, and now they discontinued it. That's a spicy take for sure.
I agree with that sentiment.
I disagree.
I just really. I mean, yeah, I know you. I think you like the 5 a lot more than I do.
No, I can't wear the 5. It's too clampy.
No, but it's still like pretty high on your ranking list with EQ. Like,
Oh yeah, because
I think
But
you
he can't
enjoy the
use
sound
it.
of it.
yes,
Yeah.
the technicalities are very good.
Yeah. The non-sound correlated aspects are different, but
Are
think-
difficult. Yeah.
the LCD4 is probably still like to this day my favorite headphone. But
HE6.
it's gone, man. Yeah, well, like,
HE6.
so I tried HE6 for the first time this past New York Can Jam, and I really enjoyed it. Actually, I wasn't expecting to, but I would still take an LCD4 over it. And I don't know. I feel like there's this tendency of the market. Maybe this is a spicy take on my part, but I feel like the market as a whole had some special stuff, and is just every refinement is actually a step backwards. And you can feel free to disagree, but I feel like the 5's a step backwards from 4. The new Utopia is a step backwards from the old Utopia. The new HD 800 when it comes out is going to be a step backwards from the new, old HD
Okay, well,
800.
Sennheiser doesn't count. They always make stuff worse. Like, 600 to 650, worse.
But is 600 worse
No.
than the 580?
No,
Is
No,
600
I
worse than the
disagree.
580?
That is
No, it's
actually
not.
popular community
It's
lore,
not.
though. A lot of people think it
Ah,
is.
It is. It is
in,
public
like,
community
the-
lore. It's
to the Slam Club, yes.
HD 580
is
infinite
better.
scaling.
Yeah, so no, Sennheiser just always
God.
makes stuff worse than Revision. And that's why the HD 650 is the worst
No.
one.
No.
No,
it's-
no,
no.
HD 660S is worse.
Well, yeah,
HD
and
700
that's
is
another-
worse.
So the 660 is a new one, technically. So wait to see how bad it's going to
660S2
get.
is better than the 660S.
That's true. That is a
I
counter
disagree.
example.
I disagree,
What?
actually.
What? Okay,
Yeah.
that's a spicy take. There's no universe.
Feel free to call
What?
it that. But I don't like as much treble. The
Yeah, but
660 has
that's
boosted it above.
no. The
what?
S2 is better than the S, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm saying I disagree. The
What?
S1 is darker, which I preferred.
Is
Sounded
it, or is
more
it just padware?
coherent. Oh, come on.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was darker. Sennheiser's own marketing squig.
was
on
a little
the
bit more
1528.
sub bass and a little bit more treble. Is what they showed, right?
Yes.
But otherwise, pretty similar. Like it's got that relaxed ear gain.
Yeah, the ear gain and mids are all the same. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same basic driver and chassis and all that. I think the main difference was the whatever was done at the rear.
Right.
Okay, so Kirka wants to bite Andrew.
What? Oh, it's because you keep using the word, or not keep using the word. I don't want to mischaracterize what you say. I feel like you have used the word incisive to describe sound. Kirk, that is one of his bugbears.
He doesn't like the word
So,
incisive.
Yeah, he takes personal offense to your
All
use
right.
of the word incisive.
I'll keep
So,
that in mind.
work
Actually,
that
I
out
stole
on
that word
your own
shamelessly
terms.
from Theo.
What does incisive mean?
So Theo's to
What does it mean to you?
Heath.
Incisors?
incisors, yeah.
Surgical.
Yeah, bitey.
It's surgical. How about that?
Okay, but what is a surgical audio
Ah,
sound?
I mean, at a certain point, all language is metaphors, right? Like it's we have to. Anchor
I know,
it to
but like,
something.
what's a headphone? That's like, what's an example of how that sounds? That's what I'm trying
So
to
it
figure
is.
out.
Well, I mean, this is just an example of surgical, right?
Kirk is so happy that
But
we're
you could
talking
talk about how a headphone, reveals all of the details about a given thing, right? And you could also similarly describe that as incisive, right? It allows you. This is, and I'm quoting Tile
Okay,
here.
so this is
it
about
allows
a
you to
detail thing.
peer into the music further.
So this
That's
is
what
a
Tile
detail
says.
thing, isn't it?
You said that a bit too.
Yeah. No, so and this is the thing. Like people, well, people kept giving me that question of like what acoustic property is this? Where why don't we measure this detail thing, right? And I thought fair enough. So I'm just going to start using terms that Tile used to describe them because they
Like,
more
you can
closely.
blame
his
someone else. Yes.
Yes, I could blame somebody
Yeah,
else,
we
but
can't find him to blame him.
but all yeah, so blame Tile. No, but also, it describing it like that makes it more clear that this is not an acoustic property that I'm talking about, but rather a description of my experience with it. I think that's the important thing. As soon as we start using language like resolution and detail and dynamics, even those are dangerously close to descriptions of what people might think are actual acoustic properties that maybe we should be measuring, like for example impulse response and transient and all that, whatever else.
Well,
right?
and I mean, detail and resolution have real meaning. So no,
yeah,
I
they
actually,
do. Yeah,
you sold me on using the tooth word.
there you go.
Kirka, I've got to say you're wrong. Resolve is right about biting things.
That's right. Next, I'm going to talk about biting.
I mean, it could be
Biting
worse.
into
If
the
you go
music.
down-
Making me not let you get
if
away
you
with
keep
it.
going from surgical,
This headphone
from
allows me to
surgical,
bite.
you go to sterile, and then you're just going to end up with this headphone sounds vasectomy.
Where's analytical in that? Below surgical?
I
Analytical's
feel like
fine.
those two are often
It's
used similarly.
it's fine. Clinical is another one. I'm a less a fan of that one, but I have used it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it makes you feel like you're going to the clinic, and they're gonna
Yeah.
figure out
The
what's
answer,
wrong
by
with
the way, for like what do all of these terms describe? The answer for that is the idiomatic ER4.
you. Now, SR or
There you
XR?
go. Same. I mean, isn't the XR like not that different? It's just like
There's
a
a-
little lift,
Bass, right?
Yeah, that's more bass.
just like a little bit. Like I feel like the difference between ER2 SR and XR is
Not
bigger.
not 24 dB. So it's not
Oh
big
my
enough.
god, when am I gonna live this down?
You're never going to live that one down.
No, but actually, Taryn agrees with you. That's how he wants to listen to all headphones.
Of course he
That-
does, because he's the boss and he's right. Therefore, I'm the boss. And I'm
By the transitive property, you are correct.
so true.
I think there's a logical
Mama
fallacy
Bike
in there.
says BA drivers are made for hearing aids. That is just factually true.
Yeah.
That is
Factually
what they are
true,
made
yes.
for. That's a terrible hot take as a result.
Oh, I see
Yes.
Kirka's thing. Resolve drops word incisive like Cardi B drops her dignity.
Oh, you know what? Actually, there's an interesting message from Jamie that I want to highlight.
Yeah,
Um,
aka Side Salad Audio or Side Salad Reviews on
Shout out
YouTube.
to Side Salad Audio.
friend of the program, friend of us all as individuals. Love Jamie. One of the nicest people I've ever met in audio or anywhere. The KZ controversy with drivers for marketing is fine and past. The current controversy from KZ is the PR2 where they tuned it to Hawaii Bad Boys preference, and then after a certain run, the tuning changed. I don't know
Oh,
if
that's
y'all have
just
been
fucking
watching this.
stupid.
It is,
They
yeah.
so they
And
changed the tuning just without any silently.
Does he then take his stamp of approval off?
I don't know,
Because
but
they
yeah,
obviously just want the marketing clout, right, from a given,
absolutely,
you know.
yeah.
But why would you do that? Why would you do that?
Did
It's
people
like
not like it?
it's more work to change the tuning.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like God, that makes so little sense. If they had a new tuning, they could just have called it a new model and gotten like the launch hype. Why would
Yeah.
they do that?
I never claimed they knew what they were doing.
Wait, what?
Okay,
what
well,
is-
that's good context. Thank you, Jamie. That's the stupidest thing I've heard in weeks.
someone says please don't shill on this channel. Who is
Please don't
Please?
chill on this channel.
For-
I
Oh, that's-
am.
Oh no, that's just one of listeners' lackeys. But no,
I'm gonna one of my
you have lackeys? Oh,
lackeys.
I wish I had
don't.
lackeys.
I will say though, you should buy a DT200 while it's on
no,
sale
you
on
should
Ali
buy
for
red.
$70.
See, now he's
You
shilling.
should buy
Blaine's
both
shilling.
and then compare them, because then you'll know what I mean when I say I don't like reds mids.
You should buy original HE6s.
Ah, no, you
Oh
shouldn't.
yeah.
No, you shouldn't.
Look
Yes,
how
you
that
should.
It's a
ended
great
up for
headphone.
Humble.
For what? For,
Look how that ended up for poor Humble.
how many does he have?
My poor boy.
0.
Oh, really?
No,
Oh
I
no,
think
us
he
saying that. Yeah, I see.
still
What,
has
I see what you
one.
mean.
I think he might even still have two, because he got his broken one fixed by the guy who makes the Nan 6 and 7 in China.
Oh, right. Those are
But then he-
interesting. I'm curious about those.
We really need to look
Yeah.
closely at the Nan. I would love to just open up a Nan and see if just how similar it is.
Trying to think if I know anyone in Canada that has one. I know someone who has one and would be
Well,
willing to send it.
I don't
That'd be
think
cool.
they'd be willing to have it vivisected.
Maybe.
We could see if we could buy one. You know. But
They're not that
supposedly they're HE6 SE drivers, right?
So the Nan 6 was, I think, based on the Susvara driver, and then the Nan 7 was closer to the HE6.
Okay.
Yeah. I confess I haven't paid that much attention to it. But yeah. Someone
Okay.
correct me in chat if I
All right.
feel like
One
I had
more.
something.
Let's do one more. Okay. How about this? What
What's
is
that?
your spiciest take, listener? Or did
Me?
you already get? Yeah.
My spiciest take?
On audio.
Thanks.
Hmm.
Wasn't sure. My spiciest take. I fear it's going to make me sound more closed-minded than I am, and
On audio.
I know, and I realize it may paint me in the light of having a bit of cognitive dissonance because of the headphone I currently have on my head. Planars have a long way to go. It's not a spicy take in my community, but I feel like at large, audiophiles in general are very happy with them, and they have a lot of the qualities that they index for and look for. I've only heard one where I was like satisfied. Like, this is great. This is everything I want out of sound. Whereas I've had that in dynamic drivers more often. I think a corollary to that could probably just be audiophile headphones have too much treble.
Is it all about the treble with you?
See, it's funny
No,
because
absolutely not.
you
No,
guys are
but
are
it's a key
both
part.
kind of like on the
Opposite.
opposite sides. Yeah, for what you prefer.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually firmly agree, right? Like, planers and e-stats right now are employing generally extremely remedial tuning. Like, they are by and large just put headphone driver in solid baffle
Oh my
CO2
God.
head.
Especially with some of the stuff that we were like Some of the drivers that we got when we were doing the headphone project.
Oh, the
Yeah,
how's that going, by the way?
it's on pause.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we
All
learned
right.
things. We'll see.
Oh,
But
I'm
I
sure.
mean,
Yeah.
that's one where we really need to know where we're going before we set out again.
exactly. Yeah.
True.
Um,
But Blaine, when you say you agree, and that the tuning methods are, I think you said, did you say remedial?
they're basic. I mean, like an
Right.
average planar is not that different from like a Sennheiser HD 414, which is I think the first acoustically open
Open.
headphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you change? Just off top.
It depends on the
More
goals
Z?
you have, right? Like it's not as simple as that, and you know it. Anyway, no, I mean like an
I'm
example
just
of
trying to steer the
something.
conversation towards acoustic impedance.
I hate this.
As always.
We should have ended this. So no, but an example of a headphone. And this isn't a terribly great headphone. This is a headphone that I think was at least trying something sort of interesting and new. Was the final D8000 and D8000 Pro, right?
Oh, with the air film damping.
Yeah. So their whole thing
Yeah.
was we'll integrate a fixed leak. We'll have damping so that we can control how much the driver is exerting, and we'll get more of the response we want. And I think they got what they wanted. I don't want what they wanted, but someone might. Maybe you might. Um,
Well, but it makes them particularly not give a shit about seal.
yeah, and it's interesting to see. Like, I would like to see more of that. I would like to see something. I mean, obviously, we don't necessarily need something like how we do an integrated open, HD 600 style thing where we got a big baffle. Given how large planar drivers are, it would be hard to fit that. But it'd be interesting to see more complex tuning used and planar responses that were more than just, oh, here's the driver's modal breakup, plus here's what its resonance frequency is, plus this is the impact of the ear pads, Something that gets us out of just slapping drivers into ear pads. Because we have been out of there in dynamics for 40 years now. Like the DT880 had a good response. I'll fight you both on that one in 1980.
It's okay. It's okay to be
I would
wrong.
disagree there. I mean, I would disagree. I would say that it has too much treble, but I think for what it was at the time, it was a very
Yeah, for
important
1980, I think that's fine. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Or was it 1980?
And it was 1980.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The DT880 is way ahead of its time. Okay, so ADVC says we need more fun, bright colors in audio, stuff like pastels.
Such a good take. And I feel like you guys just talked about this on the stream. Maybe last one.
Do you mean in graphs and data or in like actual headphone design?
Actual product. I remember you guys comparing it to cars, how like you want a base model.
Oh, yeah.
And then you want to be able to like branch out from
Yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
things that are not sound correlated. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I don't know why I can't get a carbon fiber HD 600.
Yeah, you can, well, that, but then also this one has the red trim. You can spend an extra $200 for it.
So many people would. Sorry if I interrupted you,
No,
by
no.
the way, Blaine.
Oops. No, I'm trying to figure out what someone in chat is saying. Okay, so I've been trying to Daniel Foster to say, what are you saying? But apparently what he said broke my brain so much that I can't ping him correctly. He says, what I would like to see are self-powered piezo monopole headphones using phone-on transmission, no batteries required.
I don't know what that is.
I also
hope
don't know
that's
what that
post.
means. I mean, it's a good post. That post
That's what I'm saying, but-
that post is gonna stick with me. That post is
Post
gonna
more
haunt
stuff
me.
like that and then we read it out.
Yeah.
All right. So
Um,
we have listeners' spicy take, which is that planars have a long way to go, and we have Blaine's agreement there. I have somewhat of a adjacent thought to that, which is I totally get what you mean. I don't know how much further they can go though, given space constraints or size, like weight and stuff like that.
Well, but we're thinking about this too much from a paradigm of, tuning adjustments we made like they were on dynamics. Dynamics, you can make a small driver and it works well. Planars, you do want to go a bit larger, so there's less space. But I mean, think about, you're fond of the Sundara, right? And the Sundara has an integrated leak.
I think
there's still
that
space
stuff
for
is cool.
including.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's still space for including things like tuned resonators and
Yeah.
stuff. So I'd like to see planers develop to the point that we have planar responses that are as close to what people um that are as close to what people get from dynamics in terms of as close to what they're trying to hit for the targets. Like for the HD 600, probably even for the HD 660S or whatever, I'm dead sure Sennheiser is hitting whatever their strange goals are. Um, I'm less sure about that for a lot of planners.
Yeah, I always wonder like what the process is for headphones like the Audivina. Were they like, yeah, that's what we want to do? Or were they like, I guess this is what we got?
Yeah,
You know?
it seems to me they're just like filling out a hole in their product catalog, you know, which like isn't an invalid
But
thing to
I mean,
do, but I don't think they have any sonic ideas that they're really trying to
right.
hit.
Or it's just like super coarse grained, right? Where they're like, well, it has bass extension and it has treble extension and zoomed out. Okay.
Oh man.
But I mean, to a certain extent, you could say the same thing for, the memory foam Odysseys, right? The ones that are super
And I
dark.
would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but MM500 is a step in the right direction, I think, for Odyssey.
I think so too.
I think it's a fair, certainly the Maxwell. I mean, that shows you what they want. Like if left to, whatever they want to do with DSP, they can nail it. And they did.
Yeah, and I'd like
Yeah.
to see, like, Odyssey has some of the best driver design out
Yeah.
there in terms of distortion and stuff. I'd really like to see them apply some of that to, I mean, I know that they like DSP, but for the people who aren't using DSP, I'd really like them to get as good of a result as the Maxwell is out of the box.
Good luck.
Hold
I mean,
on.
you probably have to. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to do something with either some sort of filters or an acoustic leak. With okay, thanks for that.
Sorry.
Did,
lost
did I
my
get it
number.
right?
I don't know. I don't know. Plane? Anyway.
There's too
So,
much
wait.
uniformity in driver tech. Bring the electrostatic and AMT drivers and other weirdness.
I want more AMT driver headphones. I don't know
I
about
don't.
IEMs.
I really don't.
I do. I don't know, man. I thought the headphone was a really interesting headphone.
Yeah, I
The
quite
head
liked
audio
it. I
one.
quite liked it.
Yeah, me
I-
me too. And I'm not one that
I've
usually
heard it
indexes for the
briefly, but
things
I
that
did not
thing
like it.
does.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like the. Now we're just getting into subjective qualia, but I
Yeah,
feel like the lateral stage
Yeah.
was like,
yeah,
and it was the only thing I ever heard where like, a ride cymbal, like the knock of a stick hitting a cymbal, had like the weight and like slam that I would usually expect of like other instruments.
it had a
But, like, it had-
physicality. Yeah,
there was a knock there that was like really cool, but ergonomically it was such a pain in the ass that
it's just huge,
you know,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
No, I'd like to
it's
see
just-
them take that idea and like do like kind of start again from a mechanical design perspective.
I think so
You're
too.
gonna have trouble making a small AMT. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can.
I don't think it needs to be small. I just think it needs to be better industrial design. Like I feel like the
Oh, that's
headband was about as bad as it could be for the rest of the headphone.
Now you're challenging them. They'll make it worse on the next one just because you said
Oh my
that.
god! Just speaking to the trend of things getting worse. Yeah.
No,
I
they,
mean,
they, they won't. We went to visit their facility in Berlin. This was like I can't remember which year this was. All the years blend together. But we did that. I think it was last year. We went to visit them, and they wanted all the feedback. They were like the most receptive to feedback. So
Yeah.
nothing but good things to say.
That's what
about
I've
those
heard
guys.
generally. Like,
Yeah.
I've never met them at a show or anything, but yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard they were very interested in that.
Yeah. There are some brands out there that are like very much paternalistic when it comes to their designs. And then there are others where they're
Yeah.
just so receptive and they're just like, tell us everything.
Yeah. Actually,
awesome.
can I speak to that for a second? I
Sure.
feel like I've had a particular experience in that regard with talking to some of my friends, not naming any names, who either have connections with or work with IEM brands in particular. Um, as is probably evidenced by the work I did for Kryn on his target, and just what I say in public chat. Um, I think IEMs also have a long way to go. But unlike with planars, I kind of see where, or to me, where I want them to go. And I've been basically doing the equivalent of elevator pitches in people's DMs, and I keep hearing that, a lot of the IEM brands are very paternalistic
Oh, really?
about, yeah, about
Interesting.
who actually has a say in the design process. And a
Huh.
lot of it is just, I mean, most of the IEM brands these days are in China, overseas, so a lot of the English-speaking people like me won't ever have a say in any discussion there anyway. But I just thought it was interesting that even people that work in the firm or have connections with the firm, represent the firm, stuff like that, don't really have much say at all.
So who
Um,
is the one? Is it like engineers who are doing this, or is it someone saying, here's
it
what will
it is
sell?
it is engineers who actually do at times take part in tuning or figuring out how to mechanically achieve a tuning on the part of the manufacturer.
Hmm.
Um, it is people who represent the manufacturer, whether in the community or to other brands. Um, and it is people who review those products and already have connections
Right.
uh, in a collaborative capacity.
Oh, specifically for collabs, yeah. But I was
Well,
thinking
yeah, I mean, some of them you can have a say, some of them you
for
can't.
sure. I
So,
I was thinking more along the lines of like if you're say an IEM company and you have X number of a certain type of driver, you got to figure out, okay, we need to get the return on this investment somehow.
mhm.
What do we do? And then that limits potentially what you could do with a given product.
Yeah.
But if you're saying like also like from a tuning perspective, that's where things get also kind of interesting because I wonder what influences what they're going for. You know what I mean? If it's not a collab, for example,
Yeah.
probably what they think will sell most. I have to assume.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I guess I'm surprised that it's again, maybe I'm just stuck in IEM world here because I feel like products just get churned out so fast that it's like people should have gotten the memo about Crin's new target by now and started releasing things that are tuned to it. I'm
Ugh,
probably just a little wrong about how long it takes to develop the product.
man,
But
I find that kind of disheartening as a concept.
what's up? That just everyone follow Crin's target as soon as there's a new
Yeah,
one or his target in
yeah.
general.
Sorry,
I mean, I
Pat.
I
agree.
think I
Like
I would
I don't think
really
it should
like
be more.
to move away from that world.
I would take an IEM tune to Crin's target over an IEM tune to Harmon any day, though.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm
Right.
sure that you would. I wouldn't,
I think
but I'm sure
I
that you would.
I think actually a lot of people in the chat would as well.
I'm sure a lot of them would, and
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine. But I think
Mhm.
ideally we shouldn't be in a space where we're just channeling people towards making exactly the same tuning over and over again.
Oh, completely.
Like
I
it's
completely agree.
good,
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not asking for that. I'm asking
yeah,
for someone, anyone,
yeah.
to
Having
hit.
at least one manufacturer would be great.
I had to go all the way back to 2019 to get an affordable IEM that somewhat met this target, and that was like accessible enough, comfortable,
You know
small.
what though?
Like,
It's really
what's up?
interesting that this is this isn't. I mean, we could think we've talked a lot about like how IEMs have gotten so much better over the years, right? Like it's been a really rapid thing where it's just increased. But like, what I'm saying is like, have they? Right? Um,
I'm of the opinion that they like haven't really.
mhm.
Um, because I mean, clearly there are examples from the past, like one that's seeing a little bit of a resurgence in places like IEF and other communities is the M9, the IER M9
Right.
from Sony, um, And I think it's been lauded for a long time, but it's always been seen as this, well-tuned, decent technicalities, great value. But people kind of forgot about it for a while, and things like the Monarch Mark II at the same price, well, maybe weren't adopted by the community in earnest, but were put forward as an option that might be better, at least to one person.
Yeah, and then that takes off with all the wings in the world.
Right.
Like my butterfly reference. So I was thinking along the lines of like if having some, you've talked about this before as well, I think, but like the idea of like at least going after something that is HRTFE to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal. And I wonder if any manufacturers are even considering that, or if they're just like thinking, this is going to, so-and-so's target is like this, and this will be close to that, and so it'll sell well for that audience. I
think certain brands are and certain brands aren't. And unfortunately, I don't think the brands that are the ones that have the access to economies of scale to get something like that done quickly.
Well, but also I'm of the opinion
cheaply.
that when everything was being done on 7-Eleven, there was just missing information.
Yeah, there was just...
And so...
we are in full agreement there, let's be clear.
Yeah.
What did you say, Blaine?
There is still missing information.
Oh, always. Yeah. But, yes, but I think we're in a better place now as far as... And I could be alone on this, where 7-Eleven targets should kind of be nudging towards. And it's not just Crin's data that I base this on. There are other people who have had 5128s and compared to 7-Eleven measurements. And,
and are you
John
talking...
has said the leak.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggle to
objectively
see...
true.
Well, yeah, but I struggle to see a scenario where we can make a transformation between 5128s and 7-Elevens that works really consistently. And
yeah,
yes, that's because of acoustic impedance.
No, well, yes, but no, I myself am kind of moving farther away from that as time goes on as well, and more so just thinking about what are the things that we know are like objectively true between the two systems, or not from 7-Eleven to 5128, but 7-Eleven to the human ear. And the thing that I think is objectively true is, humans generally have less bass than a 7-Eleven would show.
Something measured on a human would.
Yeah.
Would.
Yes. As far as what I mentioned in chat on the super live stream, which was the CE1.
Yeah.
In-ear mic.
Right.
See how each loads the response of the IEM. That was eye-opening for me because it didn't show the same exact behavior as a 5128. I didn't expect it would. Obviously, it's a average. I am not a 5128. But what was there was interesting and instructive. And I feel like if there's something we should be targeting, it's probably something akin to IEMs having more bass. Though I would say that shouldn't end at like... Bass shouldn't end at 200 hertz.
What?
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because if you look at like the Blessing 3, for example, it's quite dipped, and bass boosted, but quite dipped throughout that region. That's that whole thing. It's like, I was digging into that and I was thinking, like if we started to like fully match the B&K, targets, it would look super weird if measured on 7-Eleven.
Yeah. And like,
super weird.
Super weird. Like that 400 hertz thing, I was advocating for a while, and I've since like smoothed the way.
Yeah.
It's actually more prominent on Crin's rig than any other.
Yeah.
Because the like deltas from ratings and Pipe the Sonics like both showed that it was less of a peak dip, but or a bell dip, but more of like that's the nadir of like a shelf.
Yeah.
So even that though, it's like, that's a rig of 20 people, 20 canals, or 40 canals, 20 people. But
yeah.
I think it's 27. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I read Sorensen. It's Soren Johnson et al. Wow, why do I want to call it Sorensen at all?
Because we were talking about MDAX.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the MDAX guy, right? Yeah.
Our mate.
No.
That might not even be the MDAX guy.
Question mark?
I don't know.
Insert
But anyway.
Northern
Sorry,
European
I think my
surname.
brain's fried. Maybe we should call it a break here.
Yeah, we've been going for almost 3 hours now. So, okay, final thoughts, and then we'll end this. Final thoughts from Blaine, just in general. Don't say
I
buy
like
red.
having,
Don't you dare.
well, obligatorily buy red, but no, what I was
God
going
damn
to
it.
say before you said that was I'm enjoying having people on more regularly, and I hope that we can keep having multi-person streams. Doesn't necessarily have to involve me, but I like having 3 talking heads, maybe even 4. I've been having fun. It's nice to talk with people who are friends.
Nice to have
For
friends.
It
Yeah,
is nice
it's a
to
very
have
wholesome
friends.
final statement. And from you, listener?
Mine is going to be 2-part, actually. First, I would like to thank you for having me. This was great. As someone who has, been in the community a little bit, stopped, and then came back with a vengeance. I did wonder where Tile went when I came back, and I am grateful that people like you and Kryn were here to kind of carry that torch. I'm grateful for what you do for all of us. The
Appreciate
second
that.
part of all of that is I have some shout outs that I am obligated by my little heart here to shout out. First, I would like to shout out Humble, who's been my
Big shout
day
out to
one.
Humble.
Been my day one, is the reason I have any friends, the reason I have this community that I can say that I love. Shouts out to Kyle, Tam, Bill, Claire, Sid, Flux, friend of the program, everyone in IEF, Wild West, Audio Oasis. I love you all. Thank you so much for being my friends.
Aww.
You just one up to Blaine's wholesomeness.
I'm sorry. I will say I did have that plan from the very beginning.
Okay.
So it wasn't spontaneous.
We should shout out those folks more often because they are. I agree. They are all
community
fantastic.
streams like this are, I feel like, a really good tool to give those people a platform and give them some visibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thank you for it.
Also, shout out to Side Salad. I see in the chat.
Oh,
Always
can't
shout
believe I
out
missed
Jamie.
Jamie.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah, no, you
shouted him out a
did
bit
miss
before.
Jamie, which is really undoes all your wholesomeness.
Especially because
Yeah.
he's the most wholesome person
Yeah.
in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Love you,
All right.
Jamie.
All right. And yeah, I think that's basically going to do it for the stream. I'm going to end by saying once again, big thanks to listener and to Blaine for participating and taking time out of their Saturday. And also, once again, just like I said at the beginning, big thanks to headphones.com for those who haven't who joined us late. Headphones.com makes all of this possible. And it is also where we post all of our written reviews. Listeners' reviews are up there as well, some of them at least. And then also our forums linked in the description, our Discord. And do I have any final thoughts?
Melvin needs to be stopped.
It better not be about Getty or Case. This is all I'm going to say.
Everybody should read everybody should read Frank Jackson's What Mary Didn't Know.
Oh.
I'm going to leave it at that.
I thought you were going to say everyone should read On the Standardization
Actually-
of High Quality Studio Headphones.
No.
No, that would be a
That
good
would-
take.
that would be
No,
such a good
if
way
anything,
to end.
everybody should read the segmentation paper. That is an important paper, I feel, that is
Yeah.
often missed.
It is.
But I will also say Gettier's paper is not long, so you could read. You could read about it's fascinating. You could read all about barn facades. Justified true belief is wrong,
This has
etc.
gone off the rails, and I feel
has.
responsible.
No, I'm uniquely responsible for being off the rails, and so I will end it there. Again, thanks to everybody, and always great to see everybody in the chat. And we will see you guys in the next live stream that we do.
Melvin needs to be stopped. Tam needs to be stopped. Thank you.
Tam definitely doesn't see you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.